Good morning and welcome to the AM show. It's yet another day to discuss the issues of national interest, interrogate the activities of our leaders and expose them where need be. But of course, I'm here with Benjamin Akakbo and my name is Sweetie Abochi.
Well, she said leaders. My name is Benjamin Akakbo. I prefer to call them Miss Leaders. But yes, we're going to be getting into some of those salient issues. But to kickstart matters, we'll serve you the news, then the news review with Wisdom Dogbe, who will be joining us. After that, sports with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi.
And then, we pivot into our big stories. Now, today, let's get into the issue about this SSNIT scandal, or if you could call it that. So, Trade Union Congress has come up in arms against the Social Security and National Insurance Trust for its decision to cede 60% hold of each of their 4 splash hotels to the Agri Minister, Brian Champong, as they vow to unleash a protest ever recorded in the country if SSNIT nails the deal. We'll delve into the conflict of interest issues and other matters arising. You want to stay with us for that.
Well, also coming up this morning, the minority in Parliament says it will fight back any attempt to actually pack the security services with MPP party supporters and foot soldiers. This morning, we discussed that all-important issue of politicization when it comes to recruitment into our security services and the consequences thereof, and how we can cure the practice in order to maintain professionalism and neutrality, if you like. We'll be bringing you the details of that as well.
And of course, we'll bring you again our Hotline documentary, the latest, When the Mind Is Not, by Emmanuel Jivenu, when he explores the complex issues of mental health in Ghana, referencing bipolar disorder. Stay with us. We'll talk to a psychiatrist on that regard. So, welcome aboard the AM show. Join us with your thoughts, your comments, either via phone when we open the phone lines, although we haven't done that in a bit. And you can also join us on social media at Joy News on TV across all social media platforms. Welcome to the AM News, right here on the AM Show. Details now, starting with the Trade Union Congress has issued a stern warning to the Social Security and National Insurance Trust to halt the reported sale of 60% of its stake in 4 hotels to MP and Minister for Agriculture Brian Champong's Rock City Hotel. SSNIT, in a statement, denied any foul play in its decision to sell a 60% stake in its hotels to Rock City Hotel. The trust fund said the Rock City's hotel submitted the best and strongest financial proposal out of 6 shortlisted entities. Now, organized labor insists the decision by SSNIT to offload its shares to Rock City Hotel is unjust and an act of state capture. My colleague, Michael Ashali, was there and has come through.
SSNIT said in 2018, they started the process to sell 60% of their interest in 6 hotels: Labadi Beach Hotel, La Palm Royal Beach Resort, Ridge Royal Hotel, Elmina Beach Resort, Buzia Beach Resort, and Trust Lodge. By December 2019, they said they had selected a transaction advisor. They later advertised for an expression of interest for a strategic partner. A total of 9 companies responded. They settled with Rock City Hotel.
Organized labor is asking government to, as a matter of urgency, cancel SSNIT's move to sell its interest in some hotels. Dr. Yaoba, who represents the TUC, says there's a lot wrong with this particular deal.
We in organized labor find it extremely difficult to understand why. First, SSNIT's interest in 6 hotels will be packaged and sold as if all the hotels are in the same financial situation. 2, we find it difficult to understand why the original proposer of the sale of SSNIT's interest in 6 hotels has now reduced to 4. We hold the view that this renders the whole process null and void. And 3, we find it difficult to understand why the proposed payment terms varied from the original MOU based on the recommendations of the transaction advisor. We cannot imagine that state properties will be sold to a minister of state. For us, it smacks of state capture, and that should be stopped, and stopped immediately. And if the Minister for Pensions, who is also Minister for Employment and Labor Relations, fail to stop SSNIT, we workers of Ghana, we own the funds. We will stop that process.
Additionally, the TUC is seeking an audience with President Akufo-Addo to discuss more urgent issues.
We ask the President to convene a meeting with leaders of organized labor to discuss SSNIT, and this is one of it. And our reps on the board of SSNIT had intimated that things were going on that require the meeting between President and the leadership, and we didn't want to bring this up in public. We still insist that the President should make time for us to discuss this and many other issues about SSNIT that our reps had brought to our attention. May 6th, today is May 20th. We expect that the President will invite us as soon as possible because there are many other issues.
According to
Now, stakeholders are promising to do more in the area of suicide prevention, especially child suicide, as they have, for the first time, developed a scorecard tool for media reporting on suicide. A stakeholder consultative meeting also adopted the latest World Health Organization recommendations for media reporting on suicide. Now, according to the WHO, there is a direct correlation between media reports about people who die by suicide and subsequent additional suicidal acts. This, they hope, will go a long way toward positively impacting preventive suicide.
According to the World Health Organization, at least 700,000 people die annually due to suicide. Suicide is the leading cause of death among 15 to 29 years olds globally, with 77% of suicide-related deaths occurring in low and middle-income countries, including Ghana. Responsible reporting on suicide, where information on support services is provided, can effectively drive down suicide figures. It is in this regard that the Association of Suicide Prevention Ghana, GASP, organized the consultative stakeholder meeting with over 13 stakeholder organizations to adopt the latest WHO guidelines on suicide reporting for the media and also develop a scorecard tool for media personnel reporting on suicide. Made up of academicians, mental health professionals, crisis workers, pastoral care workers, media personnel, volunteers and suicide survivors, GASP is established to prevent suicide and suicidal behavior and alleviate its effects. Dr. Niboy Kwashi is the president of GASP.
We have seen certain individuals who are within the media landscape for a long time who have been working around suicide prevention, providing public education and so on. And a fine example is yourself, or him Interior with Joy News. And going forward, the plan is that having agreed on some guidelines, we will organize trainings for our media professionals, and we will try to share with them these resources. The third leg of it will be that at the Association for Suicide Prevention, the scorecard or the basis for evaluation, that resource will be used by our center or the association to monitor periodically, get onto the platforms, pick up newspapers, go onto the online pages of all of these media houses in Ghana and see how they are making use of these resources towards improving the appropriateness and quality of news about suicide.
Meanwhile, some stakeholders who are already excited about the measures being undertaken are promising to do more in the area of prevention to save lives. First is the chairman of the National Media Commission, Yaobuadu Ayebuafo, who thinks suicide reporting is newsworthy and must be done with all circumspection.
When somebody commits suicide, there's the possibility that he will leave behind children. And so that they will have to take care of those children. So it becomes an issue for the public.
We have had the stakeholder engagement with the Association of Suicide Prevention of Ghana. I think it's very timely, very good. They have opened our eyes to what can be said, what cannot be reported on.
What we're going to be doing specifically is to ensure that we do health reporting that takes account of suicide reporting as a health issue as part of the undergraduate curriculum and also at the master's level.
Participating institutions include the National Media Commission, the University of Media, Arts and Communication, the University of Ghana School of Public Health, the Ghana Mental Health Authority, the Ghana Journalists Association and Kpebu. Others are the Ghana Psychological Association, the Ghana Health Service, as well as representatives of religious groupings. From Peduase for Joy News, Ohimenteria reporting.
In other stories, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has stated that the Upper West Region Integrated Recycling Composite Plant and Medical Waste Plant will not only manage 400,000 tons of waste, but will create over 1,000 direct and indirect jobs in the enclave as well. Speaking at its commissioning in Kpebu in Wa, Dr. Bawumia says it will improve the healthy conditions of the people and reduction in air, water and land pollution. Join News' Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from Kpebu.
President Akufo-Addo on October 9, 2020 broke the ground for work to begin on the integrated recycling composite plant and medical waste plant at Kpebu in the Wa municipality. The aim of the project is to receive and sort solid waste in the Wa municipality and the other 10 adjoining municipalities and districts in the region. The waste will be processed using the state-of-the-art processing machine to convert the organic component into compost. Other recyclable materials such as plastics, metal scraps will be extracted from the waste and reused as raw materials in the plastic and metal industries. After almost 4 years, work on the 400,000 ton daily capacity municipal waste plant was completed. Engineer Malik Kobla Daniel is the plant manager of the integrated recycling composite plant.
Now we want to decentralize this whole intervention and bring them to all the regions. So we have a plants now, and this plant will serve the good people of Wa and its immediate environment.
The medical waste plant, on the other hand, will also manage hazardous waste from health facilities in the region. According to the general manager of Medical Waste Limited, Engineer Sinem Tenge, the plant will be able to treat 5,000 tons of infectious medical waste.
So this implies that we have various trucks, specialized trucks that move from one healthcare facility to the other to pick up the segregated infectious waste and transport it to the treatment center here. Over here, we have microwave treatment systems that sterilizes the harmful organisms in the waste, making it harmless for final disposal. This implies that if you have any form of infected syringe, if you have blood-stained material, any material that is hazardous in any way, this equipment is able to render it totally harmless.
At a colorful ceremony attended by people from all walks of life, including prominent paramount chiefs from the region, government functionaries, Vice President Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, in a brief statement before he commissioned the plants, noted that the project is an example of the collaboration and partnership between government and the private sector. Dr. Bawumia disclosed that the commissioning of the integrated recycling composite plant and medical waste plant is the 7th in the country and has the capacity of processing not only 400,000 municipal solid waste per day, but also employs
of the facility includes over 1,000 direct and indirect health of the populace and reduction in air, water, and land pollution. The Wa Medical Waste Treatment Facility is one of the 14 centralized medical waste treatment facilities being established by the Jospon Group of companies in collaboration with the government of Ghana. This is the fourth facility to be commissioned after Kumasi, Ho, and Takoradi plants were inaugurated in 2023.
Apologies for that sound. We'll bring you a revised one in our subsequent bulletins. But away from that, thousands of natives of the Kpebu state, friends and well-wishers of the Ochinhene Osajefo Amwetia Ofori, are expected to visit the Kpebu traditional area between May 2024 to December 2024 as the Ochinhene celebrates his 25th anniversary of the accession to the Ofori painting stool. Now, the Ochinhene's Silver Jubilee celebration is under the theme 25 years of sustainable leadership and service to humanity. Maxwell Kudeko has more in this report.
Addressing the media at a press launch of the 25th anniversary celebration in Kpebu, the Ochimantra Frihen Oketeche Buache Dankwa espoused the achievement of Osajefo Amotia Oforipenin and described him as a paragon of innovative traditional leadership with few rivals.
Osajefo took over at the time when Ochimai and the eastern region were confronted with many developmental challenges. Ochimai wore the unenviable tag as the poorest performance in the basic education certificate examination, BEC, despite significant public investment. This had its roots in growing social crisis of typical truancy, increase in the school dropout rate, the surge of teenage pregnancy, and the spread of HIV. Nananom, led by the Osajefo, had to step in, often in the necessary deviation from outmoded cultural limitations to address the HIV menace and teenage pregnancy as a first step. Osajefo launched a successful advocacy for increased funding and rekindled the interest and involvement of parents in their children's education. Today, the impressive strides we have made in terms of rapid reduction in the school dropout rate, reduction in the incidence of all teenage pregnancy matters, and decrease in reported cases of HIV infections is a tribute to Osajefo's exemplary leadership and advocacy. This, we cannot be said only for the basic education, but also secondary and higher education over the last 2.5 decades. Under his leadership, 10 basic education schools, christened the Amwetia Oforipenin Model Schools, have been established in 10 locations within Ochimai to actually complement the efforts of government in the education sector. Ochimai is noted worldwide for its flora and unique fauna. The establishment of the UCAES is the related result of the personal fidelity of the Osajefo in the Forest Ochimai agenda. In particular, the world-acclaimed Itiwa Forest, which is not only a home to diverse and rare species of mammals, birds, and butterflies, but more importantly, it serves as the ecological backbone for several water bodies in the eastern and Accra Plains. Forest provides for game, ecotourism, traditional medicine, and sustainable commercial agriculture. It is by this conviction that on several occasions the Osajefo has initiated fruitful deliberations with the then Prince Charles, now King Charles II, Rainforest Project, and other renowned conservationist institutions across the world about the measures to stem the tide of climate change and global warming.
Up next, business update.
Time now for the business update on the AM show. In our first story, the Institute of Economic Affairs says the Ghana cedi is under serious threat following the significant depreciation of the currency by 13.7% up in mid-May 2024. Now, the IEA further proposed an alternative to full dollarization, which would be to adopt a currency board system and for the Bank of Ghana to progressively build up its foreign exchange reserves to at least 70% of the currency in circulation.
In a recent press release, the Institute of Economic Affairs have highlighted the critical state of the Ghanaian cedi, emphasizing the need for immediate and sustained interventions to halt its persistent depreciation. The cedi has depreciated by 30.0% in 2022, 27.8% in 2023, and 13.7% up to mid-May 2024, with an overall depreciation of 99.99% since adopting a flexible exchange rate in 1983. The cedi's current value is 13 Ghana cedis, 77 pesos to $1, which, according to the Institute of Economic Affairs, signifies an existential threat to the national currency. The IEA is proposing that the government should engage with both the IMF and the external creditors to reach an early agreement on the external debt restructuring exercise. The second option is for the Bank of Ghana to step up for the enforcement of FX market regulations, which includes limits on FX carry-on for travelers and supportive documentation for FX purchases. The Institute further encourages the Bank of Ghana to work with security agencies to monitor acts of illegal FX transfers through banks, forex bureaus, and other channels. The Institute is urging the government and stakeholders to take decisive action to secure the future of the Ghanaian currency and, by extension, the economy.
In our next business story, the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana National Gas Company, Dr. Ben Asante, is making a case for more gas pipelines in the West African sub-region to improve the distribution of the commodity at affordable rates for countries that need it the most. According to him, the lack of infrastructure on the continent and the region is contributing to the high cost of gas to supply power plants across the region. Dr. Asante made the call at the ongoing Society of Petroleum Engineers Biennial Summit and Exhibition in Accra under the theme, Embracing Innovation, Redefining the Future of the Oil and Gas Industry in Africa.
The second biennial summit and exhibition of the Society of Petroleum Engineers is part of the initiatives to create a common platform to discuss matters of concern for the industry. Chief Executive for Ghana Gas, Dr. Ben Asante, in a keynote speech, advocated adequate investment in infrastructure, including pipelines, to be able to transport gas to member countries at an affordable rate.
Having all those who are net exporters of gas, for example, to have the requisite infrastructure to connect to those who are net importers. So, we're talking to the former Equatorial Guinea, Nigeria, and whatnot. So the idea of having that Morocco pipeline is great. Certainly, the West African gas pipeline, which has been in operation for well over 10, 15 years, is also a laudable idea to bring gas over to and certainly to Ghana as the anchor point. But we need more intra-continent to link those who are net exporters of this valuable commodity to those who are net importers.
Section Director for SPE Ghana and Coordinator for the Association of Oil Marketing Companies Ghana, Dr. Rivers Nopon, explained that technology can be deployed to deal with the infrastructure gap in the sector.
In the moment on when discussing the energy transition issues, we actually discovered three challenges that Africa faced, and the first one was geopolitics. Second one was funding, and then the main one was technology. We realized that we could not transform because we lacked technology, and the reason why we chose this topic is to start a discussion around energy transformation, digitalization, and innovation.
The Regional Director for SPE Africa, Egoho Efiam, stressed the need for more collaboration between government and private sector for Africa to maximize benefits from the oil and gas industry.
It's been very receptive. The governments have been very receptive. You've seen GNPC is there, you see Ghana Gas is there. We have folks even from the Nigeria Council are here as well. Senior people from other countries that are also here as well. So I believe that SPE has been giving quite a welcoming, a very big welcome, both in Ghana and elsewhere in Africa Africa. It's impressive, I assure you.
Thanks for staying for the business news. Back to you, Sweetie Abochi.
Right, on that note, we end the AM News. On to the conversations now, starting with the newspaper review segment. You want to stay with us.
Welcome back on the AM show. Time now for the news review. What color is it you're wearing this morning?
I don't know, Benjamin, but it must be a shade of green or beige or something. I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah. What do you think it is?
I'm not very sure
Gray
myself.
Or green. It's like a shade of both. Can you hear them back there?
Yeah. We need to investigate.
Whatever it is, it matches with my glasses and I like it.
I see nowadays you've been doing some color coding, earrings, glasses, the frames versus.
No, I must add, I'm just flawless like that.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. My bad. All right. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. Interesting bit, though, before we introduce our guest. You know, in the news, there was that business story about the IEA calling for a currency board to deal with the depreciation of our currency. It reminded me of Steve Hank, Professor Steve Hank, in the United States. He was posting a lot, I think, in last year, 2023, so maybe from late 2022 into 2023, posting a lot about it. And one of the things he said was that, indeed, we needed a currency board as a country. Some said, no, not really the way to go. Others said, actually, we need that. It's interesting now. I just recalled that Professor Steve Hank had made mention of that. And now here we are with the IEA also calling for that. Is that the solution? I don't know. But let me just, before I bring in the guest, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, always helping us to bring you this segment. They are offering, if you're a man, prostate screening for free, gratis. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free, gratis. All you have to do, head to any of their branches. Let's start with Accra. They are at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Then in Kumasi, Kronum Abwehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takra Dianaji Estate, Tema Community 22, Tichiman Hanswa, and the Siaman Zema. If you'd like to call them instead, the numbers are 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, we give you Wisdom Dogbe. He's a financial analyst. He joins the conversation. Wisdom, good morning. Hello, Wisdom, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. I'm here together with Sweetie Abochi.
Sweetie.
Good morning, Doug. How are you doing this morning?
Doing well. Thanks for asking.
Well,
yeah. Oh, just to put you on the spot, I know I've seen, I think it may be cyan. Could it be? Doc, what color is Sweetie wearing? I'm putting you on the spot here. Let me check cyan. Actually, it is a shade of cyan.
Is it?
I think. It just occurred to me.
It looks like gray to me, though. It looks like she and I are wearing the same color.
Exactly.
Okay, so
say that we are wearing a shade of something similar. You and I.
Technically not gray, but I think, Doc, it's the cameras that are making you see. I know there's that effect. I think it's a shade of cyan. Sweetie, I'll show you when this is over. It just occurred to me that it was a shade of cyan. But anyway, we're giving you your minute and a half to reflect on something burning on your mind and on your chest. What's it going to be?
You know, again, thank you for having me. I read about this SSNIT selling its stake in some high-end hotel properties in the nation to the MP and Minister for Agriculture, Honorable Brian Achampong, and his Rock City Hotel. Look, if it wasn't for this potential buyer, I think it could make sense if this is a strategic decision by the officials who are running SSNIT, you know, to divest these assets into other investment portfolios with a much better rate of return. or any other strategic decision in the best interest of SSNIT and its contributors. However, Ben, when such properties are sold to government officials, either directly or indirectly, regardless of whether they are the highest bidders or not, right, it sure raises very serious questions about potential corruption, transparency, and accountability, right, and also conflict of interest. I say that to make the point that the sale of such property should follow a transparent and also open process in order to ensure fairness and prevent favoritism. It smells of some level of conflict, and I would suggest that this could undermine due process, and it also create a perception of corruption, an abuse of office. And how is it that a government official can buy such properties through, his privately owned company? Doesn't that create a conflict of interest by allowing the official to benefit directly from his government position? And how is that not a misuse or wrongful acquisition of public resources for private gain? I think that these things adversely impact the public trust and confidence in our institutions. And if this is actually true, right, Ghanaians should be rest assured that these properties may be sold at undervalued prices, right, which is going to result in financial loss. And it's the individual pension fund contributor who may bear the brunt for such losses. Then we need to do more to fight corruption and nepotism and its appearance thereof, right? These are the kind of transactions that provide opportunities for corruption and nepotism, and it can damage the credibility and integrity of our state institutions and the entire government.
Right. Thank you for that. When I read the story, I kept asking myself, why? Why? They say, the International Labour Organization was saying that SSNIT has depleted its coffers, and by 2030 something, they will not be able to pay its beneficiaries. They've disputed that claim. And now you're selling state-owned companies. Why? Anyway, let's get into the newspapers. Starting with the Daily Guide newspaper. On the front page, Nana meets majority and minority. 2 Togolese arrested for voter fraud. Ochinhene launches 25th anniversary. Nana Kwame Bediako says extend registration timeline, that is to the EC. And let's get into the story, starting with this meet with the president between the minority and majority. And he reads, President Akufo-Addo yesterday met with the leadership of parliament made up of both the majority and minority caucuses at the Jubilee House in Accra. The meeting reportedly focused on issues of national interest or national concern, which was held in a cordial and frank manner. It was attended by Alexander Kwame Napenyo-Markin, all of them. But what the statements that Dr. Castellato Forson released was a bit vague, if I should say. What really was those issues of national interest? What are the topics that were discussed in there? I'll do 3 stories before we get reactions because we're always trying to race against time. Go School payroll scam uncovered. The Office of the Special Prosecutor and the Controller and Accountant General's Department have recently revealed a disturbing finding from their collaborative investigation into government payroll administration. Now, the report unveiled a pervasive network of irregularities, including alarming presence of unauthorized validators. I lost that. Okay. Including the alarming presence of unauthorized validators and fictitious entities manipulating the payroll system, particularly within the northern region, covering education institutions under the Ghana Education Service. Now, according to the joint report released by the OSP and the Controller and Accountant General's Department, numerous management units were discovered to be validating individuals using credentials of deceased, retired, or malpractice or transferred validators. I'll hold on that and do one more story, and then we can get into the reaction. So, extend registration timeline, says Nana Kwame Bediako, the founder of the New Force Movement, Cheddar, has petitioned the Electoral Commission to extend the period for the ongoing limited voter registration exercise for the first-time voters. Addressing a presser in Accra, he says that the 20 days allocated by the EC to carry out the registration exercise was woefully inadequate. Quote, they've given us 20 days, it's 21 days actually, to practice our voting registration rights. And this I have put in a petition on behalf of the nation to the EC to consider this duration and extend the time for us. Doc? What's your take?
Sweetie, I read this story about a joint investigation by the Office of the Special Prosecutor and Controller and Accountant General's Department into the government's payroll administration with a focus on government employees in the northern region. All of these come down to the level of corruption that is destroying our nation at this time. We have known the impact, right, of systemic corruption, and this is quite significant on the nation. It is affecting every aspect of society now, and it's also quite saddening situation, sweetie. When you think about the economic impact, look, this investigation focused only on the northern region, and already we are finding that almost 3 million Ghana cedis has been lost, as payment of salaries to these ghost employees. Multiply that by the number of regions we have in this country, and you feel sad for our nation. The economic impact is huge. And this is not the only area where you find this type of corruption. It's almost everywhere. And unfortunately, it is becoming part of the fabric of our society. That is why we need to grant true independence, to institutions such as the OSP to independently investigate these things and help fight this menace that we call corruption, which is driving the citizens of our country nuts, right? And depriving them of much needed development that these looted funds could have been used for. And if you think more broadly about this epidemic, right? I call it epidemic. So it creates that climate of uncertainty and also inefficiency, because one never knows what to expect when it comes to the role of corruption, which makes it challenging for businesses to do work. It diverts resources away from productive sectors, and also much needed funds to pay things like allowances and other benefits to the actual employees, because the ghost employees have dried up the funds. This kind of misallocation of the nation's scarce resources, I think that it further worsens the economic dysfunction in the country. It also worsens income inequality, and it continues a cycle of poverty within our society. Then if you think about our institutions themselves, corruption erodes that integrity and also effectiveness of these public institutions, including even the judiciary and law enforcement agencies who are supposed to tackle this epidemic. There are many times, right, that we have seen corruption permeating these institutions, which undermines their ability to deliver justice and enforce the law. And that is what weakens the rule of law.
Right.
And also, it destroys public trust in our institutions, and it creates a culture of impunity,
right,
especially when there is lack of desire to prosecute those who commit these crimes. Instead of prosecuting them, there are a lot of instances where some of these perpetrators are cleared of any wrongdoing without any actual action taken against them.
Okay. My concern is this is not the first time. So if you uncover this, and then to what end? What happens to these institutions or those behind them? This DA primary school that is non-existent, that's been strategically positioned to just receiving out money from us as citizens. Let me do one story on the death of the president of Iran, and then we'll move to Benjamin's paper. So one seen as a likely successor to Iran's supreme leader, and the story is on page 5 of the Daily Guide newspaper. Ibrahim Raisi has died in office, leaving the Islamic Republic's hardline establishment facing an uncertain future. An ultra-conservative president, 63 years old, was killed on Sunday along with Foreign Minister Hussein Amir Abdullahian and other high-ranking officials in a helicopter crash in Iran's remote northwest. Their death comes as a delicate time for a country that faces unprecedented challenges at home and from abroad. I mean, that includes sanctions from the US and all that. Any quick reactions before we go to Benjamin on the death?
So I think that the death of the president of Iran is in that crash. I think it is deeply tragic event, right? And I believe that a nation will mourn its loss for some time to come.
Right.
I think, though, that this death would have quite a significant impact on Iran. I don't expect any significant political or economic consequences, because Iran is already struggling under huge United States sanctions. And I'm not sure how the death of the president would make any of that worse. Right. But here's an opportunity for change for Iran, right? As they think through holding fresh elections to elect a successor. Maybe this might open up avenues for some of the social and political reforms that the youth in that country have been protesting for. And also maybe this could, they could use this event of re-election to choose a successor who would champion the cause of all people of Iran.
Right. Yesterday I was watching the Becky Anderson interview, and one of the, I don't remember his name, was talking to her, and she said that his successor doesn't seem like he wants to do anything different. So, quote, it is business as usual. I mean, whatever that means. Benjamin?
Yeah, well, Iran and everything else also going on there. I mean, Raisi's passing will not necessarily change much, nothing of significance. And especially with the tussle with Israel in recent times as well, all of that, the geopolitics, I don't think anything fundamentally is going to change in Iran. Not that. On the religious front, on the economic front, on the military front, practically nothing is going to change. But let's get into the New Finder newspaper. It goes back to some of the stories you've already taken a swipe at. Hard sale of SSNIT hotels to Brian Achampong, that's according to the TUC. Ghosts chop 2.8 million Ghana cedis, chop in inverted commas, while OSP controller saved 34.2 million Ghana cedis. You can make a difference in 7 months, President tells new ministers and deputies. Upper West Regional House of Chiefs touts Baumia's honesty and transparency. So I'll just, I believe you've already touched on those two, the halting the sale of the SSNIT hotels and the ghost chopping 2.8 million Ghana cedis. Wisdom, I think you've reflected on those already, right?
I have, but I would like an opportunity to touch on the new ministers.
All right, so let me get into that story. It's on page 4 of the New Finder newspaper. So it says, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo says his newly appointed ministers have enough time to make a difference and contribute significantly to the advancement of his government's agenda with barely 7 months remaining in his tenure. The president, who swore into office 24 ministers and deputy ministers at the Jubilee House yesterday, expressed confidence in their ability to add to what he described as an enviable record of his government. Quoting him, he says, "You have joined the government with only 7 months to go, but I am confident that there is enough time for you to make a difference and make significant contributions." That is what he says there. Then there is also this bit. Nana B warns NDC against alleged evil plot. Now, the New Patriotic Party is alleging that attempts by the National Democratic Congress to implicate the MPP in the controversy surrounding the missing biometric verification or biometric voter registration kits and biometric verification devices are part of a grand agenda to smear the NPP. National organizer of the NPP, Henry Nanabuachi, claims that information from credible sources indicates that the opposition party intended to plant some of the missing devices, that is laptops, which are currently in their possession at the offices of the NPP in various parts of the country. Sometimes this, so per what he's saying, then some of these laptops, the BVRs, are in the custody of the NDC, and they are going to attempt planting it in the custody of the MPP. Cock and bull stories? I don't know. But if there's any truth in it, we ought to get to the bottom of it. But then again, that raises an interesting question about our security services and how supposedly there's infiltration. You know, I'll just say this before you come in. We've always had this system where NDC is in power. Okay, so especially the police service, some in the military, you'll get a bit of people in there. MPP is in power. But I would say that within this tenure, it's been shocking. That's what I'll say. Because you've had, and why is it shocking? You've had people in government. Sometimes when these police officers graduate and stuff, they will be with them. You know, yeah. I got these people in. I sponsored them. I've never seen that before. And it's a cause for worry, because if we keep feeding our security services with NDC apparatchiks and NPP, what then will we have? We'll have like a point we had with the Black Stars. NPP police, NDC police. And what will that mean? Yes, the people who will eventually get there may belong to either side, but it shouldn't be so political. Anyway, your thoughts?
Ben, it's rather unfortunate, right? If you have a security agency that is mainly doing recruitment based on party lines, I think that is rather unfortunate. It's a risk, right? It's a danger to the nation in the long term, because a lot of these people are going to be more loyal to the party and not the country. But let me digress to another topic. When it comes to these new ministers actually making any notable difference, as the president is charging them, I think it could be a tall order on them to achieve something substantial within the next 6 months or 7 months. That is why I tend to understand the stance of the minority leader, Dr. Ato Forson, on this matter, on why the minority boycotted the process of vote and no on the nominations. And here's what I can say. I was thinking that the president would rather take advantage of his power to reshuffle, to rather consolidate some ministries, right, to save the nation some money by reducing the cost of running government. There is unprecedented hardship in the country as of now as a result of the economic meltdown. Unemployment is pretty high. Inflation is still making fun of the pocketbooks of Ghanaians. Electricity supply is unstable in the country. Businesses are struggling, and some of them are even fleeing the country altogether. And many more challenges. I can't even mention all of them in this segment. I think that it will have demonstrated to Ghanaians that this administration is interested in doing whatever it takes, right, to be fiscally responsible. So instead of nominating new ministers, existing ministries should have been rather consolidated, because we have too many ministers. And I think that it is fair to call these ministerial nominations as almost lame duck appointments, right? And lame duck appointments usually raise doubts about the legitimacy of the nominations made by the president, who should be leaving office in about 6 months or 7 months. And so some may argue that these nominations could lack the mandate and the integrity and also the accountability that you would need or you expect from an outgoing government. And I also think that others could argue that these reshuffles and new appointments, they were made purely for political calculations, to secure positions for party loyalists, or to keep the paychecks coming for existing party loyalists, who should have been relieved of their duties. And here's the thing, quickly. If Dr. Bawumia wins the upcoming elections, these appointments by His Excellency President Akufo-Addo can limit the flexibility and the decision-making powers of Dr. Bawumia's administration, if these are not the people that he wants to work with, even though it is the same party. And of course, if His Excellency, former President Mahama, also wins, of course, he would need to start all over and do this whole thing and start his own government. Let's not forget that the transition of power, right? This transition process is critical, for the seamless functioning of a democracy. If you put in new ministers in place just 6 months before your government leaves power, I doubt that these ministers will come up to speed quickly enough then and make any meaningful difference and be able to facilitate a seamless transition to their successors.
Well, interesting thoughts. I do not know, though, if the current vice president were to become president come 2025, the 7th of January, I don't feel anything ties his hands, really, in terms of his own. He would have to be his own man. At least that's what picture he's painted, that he can be his own man. If that were to happen, I would expect. I wouldn't feel bound if I were in that position. I'm very blunt, and I wouldn't feel bound because someone else, my predecessor, put someone in office. I would likely kick all of you out without any bias, without flinching, without batting an eyelid. I would do it. If I felt that that is what would make my administration perform, I would kick all of you out if need be.
But let me mention this quickly, right? It's one thing saying that he wants to do something different versus what he has done over the last 7 years. Right, so we need to compare the two and see what exactly would Dr. Bawumia do if he becomes the president.
Well, time will tell if he gets the nod. I'll just wrap with these stories very quickly. Economy Times, Ghana cedi to rebound. And it says Ghana's fiat currency, the cedi, will soon begin to recover from the recent speed depreciation as development partners are expected to disburse almost $1 billion between now and December this year. This would likely stem the depreciation of the cedi and also support the economy. The cedi has recently come under intense pressure, pushing the central bank to pump $50 million on the forex market last week, far exceeding its biweekly intervention of $20 million by 150%. There's also the story about the Bank of Ghana likely to hold the policy rate, but tied to the first story I did, Ghana awaits $200 million from ECOWAS Bank. The Ghanaian economy is set to receive a $200 million boost from the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development aimed at fostering a transformative partnership. The disbursement of such funds will be through a strategic alliance with the Ghana Export-Import Bank and the GCB Bank. The $200 million of injection is intended to stimulate the growth of small and medium enterprises in critical sectors of the economy, foster job creation, innovation, and sustainable development. But I keep asking myself, you know, it reminds me in a way of Sarkodie's song, Hand to Mouth. Let's face it, as a country, we're living hand to mouth. Our government is hand to mouth. They get and they must expend to keep everything afloat. I don't need to bore anybody with how we expend our money, how by the time we've paid public servants and in fact first facilitated our debt, and now we are not even facilitating our debts, yet look at where we are. If we were, only God knows where we'd be. But facilitating the interest on debt, not the debts, the interest on debt, public sector payments, among others. It appears every step of the way we're living hand to mouth. Even we can't finance our own budgets. And I get worried when I see this. Now we are hoping that on the back of the purported $1 billion we'll get, it's going to stem the tide of where the dollar is. But even if you stemmed the tide today, people have already imported into the country at certain prices. People already have commodities on the market at certain dollarized prices. They've gone through certain tax payments and regimes. You can't change that. It takes about a cycle of about 2, 3, all the way to about 6 months to eradicate the effect of that. So when we talk about these things, are we even looking? The effects of what people have imported into the country that is already in the country will be felt way down into election time. So it's not... Doc, Wisdom, over to you.
Look, Glenn, I heard a bit about the story of Ghana signing an MOU with ECOWAS Bank of Investment and also Development for this $200 million.
Yeah.
You know, to support SMEs in the country. Look, this can be good news for these SMEs, especially the fintech startups who need startup capital to grow. But I think that with our current debt crisis, we should think hard and fast about continuing to borrow. What got Ghana into this mess of unsustainable debt levels is our lack of planning and corruption with regards to these borrowed funds. We got into this economic mess because we borrow money and we don't use these funds to support the revenue-generating initiatives. It seems we rather use a chunk of these borrowed funds, you know, to fund initiatives to score political points, or for initiatives with no certain or assured, you know, return on investment. So I think that this borrowing should be done with a good long-term strategic plan, right? Of course, these loans from our international partners can provide SMEs with access to much needed capital. And so this can also help to influence or fuel economic growth, you know, ensure competitiveness in the fintech race, and also create jobs, from what I read. And these loans offer a lower interest rate compared to loans that can be obtained from domestic banks and other lending institutions. And we all know that lower interest rate can also reduce the cost of borrowing. My only concern here is our continued over-reliance on external funding, Ben. We really have to wake up to the realization that if we don't manage these borrowings properly, we will continue to dig ourselves further and further into this high debt trap. I'm still praying for Ghana beyond aid. With all the natural resources we have available, we must achieve this one day. And the other concern that I have is that even though these loans are meant to support development of SMEs in the country, they are also subject to exchange rate risk because they are often denominated in foreign currencies. And the problem is that fluctuations in the exchange rates could adversely impact the nation's ability to service and repay these loans.
All right. Let me just do this headlines, and then if there are any other matters from Sweetie, we can take them. Momo transaction volumes dropped by 1.7%. That's still in the Economy Times newspaper. Government's revenue mobilization approach worsens inequality. That's according to Professor Bokpin. Would you like to take the other headlines from papers, or should I?
Just one paper. But when Dr. Dugbe said Ghana beyond aid, it brought back some sort of flashback of so many sound bites and tweets of things that a Kufado government, before, when they were in opposition, said arresting the dollar, if the fundamentals are weak, the economy will expose you.
The exchange rate will expose you, yeah.
Putting your presidency on the line, Ghana beyond aid, we will not go to the IMF. All of it just comes rushing.
We're proud people.
So, are they magicians? Do they say things and just magically forget the things that they say?
No, but I think sometimes when these are said, people, I think it's two things. Kufuor even, at a point, and that is where I feel admission, honesty, candor is important. Kufuor said certain things. When he came into, former President Kufuor, when he came into office, he had to admit that, oh, honestly, you know, some of the things I felt, I respected him for that. That is a leader, right? So sometimes outside of government, you may see things differently. I said, see, I cannot obi but damia ujine because oh me to me it's not.
Yeah.
That is one. In which case, when you come to that epiphany, you should be able to say that, oh, I felt this honestly. But the other bit is overdoing it, and knowing full well that this is not feasible, but yet just going on a trajectory for propagandist reasons. These are two sides of the coin. Where they are, I don't know. But that's it. Would you like to, were you going to do?
No. Our time is even up, so.
Then I'll just leave you with these headlines.
Benjamin. Headlines.
Ghanaian Times, don't promote insults, misinformation on platforms. That's according to the NCCE chairperson. The Daily Dispatch, I have been campaigning on issues, not insults. Baumia to Wana. And then there is also this one, the Chronicle. I have 33 policies to my credit, Baumia says. What about Mahama when he was VP? That's the the Chronicle, actually. And then in that same paper, we have Mahama also saying, I'll deal ruthlessly with corrupt appointees. I think those are some of the major stories. Then the Daily Graphic, make a difference despite short period. That's according to the president, of course, to the new appointees. That's it for the papers. Wisdom, we have to go. Do you have anything for us in some 10, 15 seconds?
No, all that I can say is this, right? As my last comment today is, all these 33 policies that His Excellency Dr. Baumia has, I think Ghanaians are waiting for that to transform into improving their economic fortunes in the country. And I think that is what would go into the decision on who to vote for. You know, Ghanaians are they are very wise. And Archbishop Duncan Williams, he said yesterday or a day before that Ghanaians are not always gentle. You can take them for a ride, but just for a period. Ghanaians will always rise up and they will do the right thing.
Thank you for those thoughts. Wisdom Dugbe is a financial analyst. Before we veer into sports, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, as always, bringing us to the close of this segment. They're offering you prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. All you have to do, reach out to them at any of their branches. Here in Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Chronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. Takrady Anaji State, Tema, Community 22, Techiman, Hanswa, and Esiaman Zema. You can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Up next, we serve you the latest in the world of sports. You want to stay.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. And we start with the impact of Heart of Lions return to the Ghana Premier League on the economy of Kpebu. My colleague Haruna Mubarak paid them a visit during one of their Ghana Premier League matches and put together this report.
Welcome to Kpebu, the home of Heart of Lions. While the chase for 3 points captivates this football-loving town, it appears there's more winning off the pitch as well. The day began quietly, almost too quietly, as if the town were holding its breath. With less than 2 hours to kick off, Hearts of Lions made their entry. Soon after, their opponent, Nswathreman, arrived. But still, the park remains subdued. As the clock ticks closer to game time, a transformation begins.
I'm supporting this club because it's our home and it's our team. So as a supporter, I come here just to have fun and then let the team go forward.
The team is from Kpebu, Heart of Lion is from Kpebu. So we will give our heart to the Kpebu Heart of Lion. You support them so that we will come out from the immigration where we be the first. That's our promise. So we give promise to them that we will support them everywhere they go. We will support them so that Kpebu will go high.
I came here to support the team because I love football, and I also came to cheer up with them for us to support them so that they should be out of the irrigation zone. So that this nice park that they've done for us, it should not just be in vain. We came here to support them. We are hoping that at the end of the day we'll take the
It was a day the club raked in good money. The venue, with a capacity of over 2,000, was full. Tickets ran out, and the traditional method of verification had to be used. As the club basked in the financial return, small-scale businesses also profited from the vibrant atmosphere.
Oh, it's good. A lot of invited water.
What and what do you sell?
I'm selling water, pure water, Vortic, Planet, and Rush.
Okay, so selling here as compared to other places.
This one is better.
Why?
Because the people are coming plenty. They buy it, then you go to house. You know much. You are not taking a lot of much time before you sell finish.
So you make a lot of profit.
Yes.
I have been selling at this venue for the past 3 months and business has been good. I could make 700 cedis per day. Today has also been positive.
The impact of football here goes beyond those in the stadium, with the transportation industry thriving considerably. Bikes and tricycles, the preferred mode of transport.
Because we say first, you know, me wa me nya juma bia bet me wa team num na is me twi me nya krapaga twi.
My work has been going well. Initially, I was jobless, but now I rely on this tricycle. I've made a good amount of money and feel better. In fact, I earned 10,000 cedis from this business, which allowed me to buy this tricycle.
100 million.
The hope in Pando remains strong. Many residents wish to see the club remain in the league, continuing to contribute to the town's lively and booming atmosphere. Haruna Mubarak from the Pando Park for Joy Sports.
My colleague Haruna Mubarak with that report from Pando. Now let's come to the University of Ghana, where Ghana's Black Starlets will come against Benin on March Day 2 of the ongoing WAFO Under-17 Cup of Nations. Ghana won their opening game 5-1 against Cote d'Ivoire, and head coach of the team, Lai Kinsley, was a happy man despite the victory. Now he says he wants to dominate that game against Benin later today.
We are very ready. The boys, for me, I think after the win against Ivory Coast, they were excited. We celebrated for just a day. After that, our focus was on Benin throughout. We had a day off after recovery for them to look fresh for the subsequent days. We trained match day -2, we trained match day -1, and then I think we are ready for tomorrow. It's going to be very tough. We have respect for every opponent that they put in front of us. We managed to see their game against their opponents. We've seen how we're going to approach the game. For me, I think they like going long, so we have to deal with the long balls. Line, keeping the line straight and dropping well to defend our box. So for me, we have a game plan, and hopefully it works against them. Complacent? I don't think it's in our dictionary. You know, for us, we have respect for every team. Like I said earlier on, the boys want to keep 100% record, so they approach every game with all seriousness. The Benin game will not be anything different from other games that we've played. We're keeping 100% record. We're going to start the game well, and then whatever happens, we deal with it. I know it's going to be difficult. When we get it right for the first time, for the first half, first minute, I think it's good.
Now, the Parliament of Ghana, they have decided to launch what they call a Democracy Cup. That will be played between Accra House of Oak and Kumasi Asante Kotoko. The match will be launched on June 6th by the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin.
Your work. Honourable members, because of the good works of this Parliament, a few partners and stakeholders decided to support our work, and they proposed to us the establishment of what they refer to as a Democracy Cup, which will spice our celebration of the 30th anniversary of the 1992 Constitution and this Parliament of the Fourth Republic. And so they proposed a few activities. They're organizing a public forum. They will do mock parliamentary sittings and debates, and a peace walk and fun games. They believe that this will be what they will add today to commemorate the celebrations and to deepen citizens' participation in parliamentary democracy which has been nurtured for the past 30 years. Parliament and the Parliamentary Service, in partnership with them, initiated this Democracy Cup, which they play annually. So they propose that it be launched on Thursday, 6th June 2024 in Parliament House here. And that will be followed by a pre-match event. And the maiden event to be held will be on Friday, 5th July 2024 at 6 p.m. at the Accra Sports Stadium between Kumasi Asante Kotoko and Accra Hearts of Oak. Honorable members, prior to the main match, there will be a curtain raiser between the leadership of the House, honorable members, and staff of the Parliamentary Service with former Black Star players. I think Tornado is leading that group. You all know Tornado, the former captain of the Black Stars, Stephen Appiah. The winner of the Democracy Cup will play against DC United in Washington.
Interesting one. Now let's hear from Ghana's Mohamed Kudus. He says that he has tested the waters in the Premier League and is ready to go big next season. Mohamed Kudus scored 8 goals in his debut season with West Ham United in the just ended English Premier League, and now he's ready to get going next season.
Thanks to the manager, everyone at the club, it's my first season, but the staff, the players, the coaches, player care, everyone around the club really helped me to really settle in quite well. And yeah, big credit to myself also for believing in myself and then putting the effort day in, day out, So we can only get better, I'm still far off how I see myself performing in this league and then doing my best. So it's good to get the first season on the run, but I have a long way to go and there's more stuff coming ahead. A big credit to the manager, he has done a fantastic job this season. Long season, difficult time, but ups and downs. But I give credit to all the teammates. Everyone was on top of their season. Even the guys who are not playing more, playing less. Even the guys on the bench. We are all together, and then there's a lot of respect and then energy from everyone else. So big credit to the whole team. But this is just the beginning. I've tested the waters now, and then I'm ready to get it running for the next season.
To some athletics now, and Ghana's women's record holder when it comes to long jump, Deborah Akwa, says that she was denied a financial support by the Ministry of Youth and Sports because President of Ghana Athletics, Ba Hussein, says she got injured in school. According to her, 2 athletes, Joseph Paul Amoa and James Darcy, were given $5,000 and $3,000 respectively when they got injured, representing their country in the Budapest World Championships. But she was denied same because they claim she got injured in school.
That was the only one I was expecting. I think the only one that I was expecting that broke my heart would be I think they sent 2 ministers to come to the game. So on the normal, they will just come and then give whatever they're supposed to give and then go away. But then this time they came and then they asked about an interview I did with Fentio at the World Champs where. Oh yeah, you're going to Budapest, right? That is Budapest. Okay. But I think that after my jump where I said something about Ghana promising, because I didn't mention anybody's name, but I remember Fentio asking and I said, oh yeah, Ghana promised, because I didn't want to, So then they came to ask me who did promise me, and I said, oh, it was GOC, it's not new Mensa. And they said, well, they were wondering who promised me and stuff like that. So, So I remember 2 of the ministers came and they sat us down to ask us individually what we needed help with. So I told them that throughout my whole 4 years here at SSNIT, I had not also an interview where I mentioned, that I needed help with anything, because whatever I needed, my school, provided. So I never had an interview where I spoke about, needing support or something. So then me talking about it now means like I really need it. So after whatever we talked about, the discussion, I heard they gave the other two some money, if I can recall. I don't know if I'm wrong, but I heard it was, I think, 8,000 US. So so I was even thinking that, maybe I'll be called to, maybe also get something. So I was just there, but I didn't hear anything from them. So I remember I went downstairs. I think it was the same day or the next day. So I saw Mr. Bauer. I went to sit close to him, and I asked him, that, hey, I heard that so and so, so I'm also gonna get something. And then, to be honest, he said, no, because I'm not gonna get the money because I got injured when I was in school. So that means my school's supposed to take care of me or something, right? So then I was so I was down, like I wasn't expecting that from them. So I was so shocked. So I was like, oh really? Yeah. So I was like, oh really? I didn't get some of the money because I got injured whilst I was in school. But then Japan got injured that year. Dad was also in school. So he also got injured whilst he was in school, because I remember his season was really, tough, stuff like that. So, like, what happened? Like, why me?
The president of Ghana Athletics, Bar Fuseni, has reacted to this conversation that Deborah and I had. And he says that the money that the Ministry of Youth and Sports provided was meant for athletes who got injured during the competition.
As an athlete, as a former athlete, the money that I got from there, even though the injury was outside the national competition, I will have made a formal complaint to the association in writing that this is what I'm facing. Please, how can you help me? Then the National Federation would have also forwarded the same thing to the ministry. But we all knew that athletes get injured outside competition or outside national competition. They find ways of treating themselves. Sometimes if they come to us, we support them to treat themselves. But if she gets injured within the national program, within the national competition, then it is the responsibility of the state to take care of it. I'm not saying that if we have authority or we have resources, we will not have supported her. We would have supported her. But here's the case that the injury was there before the UG. And after all that, we still supported the GOC to give her the Olympic Solidarity, the Olympic scholarship. Within the scholarship, it is 2,000 something per quarter. And within that scholarship, I don't know this particular one, but the one that I know, there's breakdown of how to use that Olympic money. One is something for competition, something for housing, something for medication, something for other things. So I would have wished, or if I were her, I would have used that part of that money for the Olympic scholarship to also try and see whether I can use it to treat myself.
On this note, we wrap up AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abla. We appreciate your time.
Notwithstanding the fact that the minority raised serious concerns about the criteria adopted by the NPP government to recruit personnel into the security services, it has persisted in taking additional steps in the last few days that we have seen. the NDC minority can authoritatively state that not long ago, the NPP government again has illegally and fraudulently given out 30 slots to all MPP parliamentary candidates across the country for the recruitment into the security services, namely Ghana Police Service, 2, the Immigration Service, 3, the Fire Service, 4, the Ghana Army, 5, the Ghana Navy, and 6, the Ghana Air Force. 30 slots to each parliamentary candidate of the NPP. The recruitment of the NPP foot soldiers into the security services, especially in this election year, is a calculated attempt to compromise the elections, given that the loyalty of the new recruit in the event that they are deployed will be to the ruling MPP and not to the state, as it is required for all security personnel. The murder of the 8 innocent Ghanaians during the 2020 presidential elections and parliamentary elections by the NPP party hooligans marked as security personnel is still fresh on our minds. These needless deaths as a result of the infiltration of our security services by such NPP thugs and hoodlums who were recruited into the security services. The blood of those whose lives were unlawfully and violently taken by the NPP thugs in security uniforms will continue to be in the hands of this government. Ladies and gentlemen, it is unacceptable that the government continues to put cheap partisan considerations ahead of the overall peace, security, and stability of our country in the run-up to the 2024 elections. We wish to remind His Excellency the President, President Kpebu, and the Vice President, Alhaji Bawumia, that they will not have their way this time round, regardless of whatever maneuverings that they will roll out in the 2024 elections. We will resist these shenanigans with all our might and all our strength. Our members, our supporters and sympathizers will not just defend themselves against unlawful attacks by the NPP thugs in uniform. We shall hold these NPP hoodlums personally responsible for their unlawful violation of the laws of Ghana and the legitimate rights of our people. Ladies and gentlemen, it is in the interest of the NPP foot soldiers to act lawfully or face the full consequences of their actions and the wrath of our supporters. Just as the minority protested vehemently against the politicization of our security services through illegal recruitment in 2019, we once again demand that recruitment into all the security services be halted forthwith to allow for advertisement to be made with the qualification criteria duly spelled out for all to see. By so doing, we would have created equal opportunity for all Ghanaians who would then be selected on the basis of merit and not cheap partisanship and nepotistic consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that this practice must stop.
So that was the minority leader, Dr. Kasialato Forson, yesterday, bringing to bear those. They are saying that this is an attempt to stack the security services, the police and the military. And the claim is that every member of parliament on the MPP side, the majority side, has been given 30 slots to provide people to fill. And likely these people will have a say as far as election 2024 is concerned. And he says the minority is going to vehemently resist that. But is this truth? Is it fact, fiction, or faction? A mixture of some truth and some untruth. Well, joining the conversation, we have Lanchini Tobu, Peter Lanchini Tobu. He is a former superintendent of police, superintendent of police, and of course, former executive secretary to an IGP. He joins the conversation. Mr. Lanchini Tobu, good morning. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning, my brother. How are you?
I am well. I hope you are too.
I'm doing great.
All right, let's go straight for it. But even before we do, I want us to look at some of the historical antecedents that have brought us here. In the course of this Fourth Republic, we have known that parties in power somehow are able to get their people into the security services, especially the police, from what we've heard. In this administration, I have seen some things that I may not have seen before, because you would even have sponsors, people who walk the corridors of power, politicians standing by certain recruits and saying, yes, I brought these people in, and these people tend to be politically aligned. But it has been done throughout the Fourth Republic. What would you say about the antecedents that have brought us to this point, even before we address the substantive issue?
Thank you very much. Let me say good morning to our cherished listeners and viewers. It is quite interesting that I will have to have this opportunity today to speak deeply on matters of this nature regarding recruitment in the security sector. I've been in the security sector, very particularly within the police, for the past 25 years. And I think that what has happened, probably we've forgotten about the principle we call the broken windows principle. It started
the broken window what? The broken window what?
Can you hear me?
Yes, you said the broken window what?
The broken windows principle.
Okay.
The broken windows principle is a simple principle that says, it's just very practically. You have a very beautiful house, one glass is broken, so it doesn't matter. And a louver blade is broken, it doesn't matter. All of a sudden, after 10 years, you go to realize that the house looks like it is a house that people don't live in. The broken windows principle, from 1992 that we started this democracy, the Fourth Republic. What I've known in the past, that we all know it wasn't even acceptable. What is protocol? Protocol is when laid down procedures are float, adverts are made, people are recruited, somebody has gone to write an exam, and he says that about 5,000 people have taken the exam. And the police or the army or the immigration, they are going to just enlist only 1,000 people. How do I make it out of the 5,000? So the person goes to look for somebody who can assist so that the person can make it in the 5,000 and then gradually get selected in the 1,000. So what it means is that the person is actually qualified, gone through the screening and everything, they're taking the exam, waiting to be called for training, and is pushing that I should be called among the first 1,000. That was the protocol that we knew. Today, we've gotten to a point where exams do not even matter. People have not even applied to join any security services. You live in your granite farm, your cocoa farm, your uncle calls you, bring your certificate, and you write your name. Because they've given your uncle 3 slots to bring names. And gradually, we are inching towards disaster because you are not building a national force. You are building a partisan force that will gradually come to do partisan policing, and finally it will affect our democracy negatively. And I'm saying that let's speak about it. That is not right. There is a standard operating procedure regarding recruitment. And first of all, what we only do is we do an assessment to ask ourselves, how many police officers do we need for this country? Probably we need about 60,000 police officers. How many do we need now? What is the gap? Okay? Then you ask yourself, how many can we recruit this year? That question can only be answered by the ability to pay. You go to the Minister of Finance and the Finance Minister says, yeah, this year I think that I can only allow you to take 2,000 because we don't have enough funding. Then you come back and say, okay, Finance Minister, I'm giving you clearance for 2,000. Let's put an advert out there. We are going to recruit. These are the specifications. We need some doctors. We need some specialists or computer engineers. We need some men and women in uniform just to do the work at the grassroots. Fine. After that advert, people apply across the country. It doesn't matter where you come from. As long as you are a Ghanaian, you are qualified. And if you qualify, you apply and you are screened. Finally, you go through the process. If you are recruited, that is it. But where we don't have an advert, my brother and my sister sitting in the village with all their senior high school certificates, with all their degrees, have not seen any advert, only to realize that a brother or a sister they completed together, he's already on his way to training. And you ask the question, how did you get it? So it was my uncle who called me to submit my name. That is un-Ghanaian. It's uncharacteristic of who we are as Ghanaians. We don't do that. And a democracy where we are supposed to be preaching accountability and transparency, these things, this covert operation will damage the image of the institution. And I have said that even me, I'm a politician. If you call me today and say, Peter, bring 100 names for recruitment, and that is the practice you want to use, and that practice can damage the whole institution, I will tell you, I'll better not bring you a single name, open it up, let people go and apply and write. If I'm even going to get 10 people passing from my constituency, and that is decent enough. I think
Peter, just a brief one before I bring in my other guest. And let me just acknowledge that I have joining the conversation Associate Professor of Criminology at the University of Cambridge, Justice Kpebu. Justice, good to have you join the conversation, sir.
Yeah, hello.
All right. Please just hold for me briefly. There's a follow-up question I have for Peter that I want to situate before I come to you. Now, are you then saying, yes, you're saying the right thing, that ordinarily people should go through the process, sit the exams, qualify per all the requirements, and that if it came to you, you wouldn't do that. But you do admit that your party has also been, complicit in this tide that we've had. You do admit that, right?
The statement I made earlier, which was very expressive, is that throughout the Fourth Republic, anytime you hear of protocol had to do with people who have taken part in the process. They believe that they've qualified and they've been screened and they've gone through, they've taken the exams. And I'm saying that if about 10,000 people took part in the recruitment process, and you are aware that the police have a financial clearance to take only 2,000, among the 10,000 who qualified and took part in the process, they are struggling to be part of the first 2,000. And that is where people struggle to go and see people, can you help me out? I've taken the exam, I know I can pass, but for fear, I want to be part of the first 2,000. If I even 2,001 on the list, I have failed. And gradually you have people doing that. It's unacceptable throughout the Fourth Republic. Yes, we know that. But when we have gotten to a point that there's no publicity, right? There is no open, transparent process anywhere, and it's all about somebody has gotten 30 slots in his pocket and now going around his village to look for people. That is the lowest we can ever go. And we should stop it now before it damages the whole institution that governs, that controls, in fact, anchors our democracy.
Hold for me, Peter Lanshini Tobu. Let me bring in Justice Tankebe. I mean, you've heard of this. You've heard of the petition by the minority and vocalized by the minority leader, Dr. Kasialato Forson. But what do you make of the context, the pre-context to the conversation? I didn't just want to go into it. I wanted to look at what has happened within the Fourth Republic and how we got here. What is your viewpoint?
Well, I think it's, as the other speaker mentioned, the issue of recruiting people or having protocol recruitment and so forth is to some extent not new. We've had that in the 80s, and I remember there was a commission of inquiry into recruitment and promotions in the service. And I think in the Fourth Republic, what we've seen is this really constant battle between the police and politicians, with politicians trying almost all the time somehow to have this control of the police in some of the key areas of their work. And the fact that we now have a situation where there is this kind of so-called backlog of recruitment, it's something not only astonishing, but I think completely new. And that, of course, makes it quite surprising for if one considers the role of the police. This is an institution that is supposed to represent, reflect, manifest the key principles that underpin the kind of governance that we have decided for ourselves. Issues of transparency, public scrutiny, equality, all these other principles. And what we are seeing now defeats those very principles. And not even in the colonial period did you have this, because in the colonial period, the British were very clear the kind of system that they were running and what kind of police force they needed to be able to do that. And that's why they will go to all kinds of places to have to recruit people who will be able to dominate the population, provide the kind of security for colonial administrators, and help exploit resources. Here we have a democracy, and we are running a police institution that is the opposite of those democratic principles. And we have now reached a situation where it appears there is this partisan political capture of the police. And in nowhere do we see this than in the kind of thing that we're talking about now.
How dangerous is it, this precedent we have set, and which we are now living through, I mean, it cannot be said, possibly by any stretch of imagination, that within this administration, no such recruitments have been made. But it appears, if what the minority is saying is anything to go by, that the ante has been upped. The question then is, how dangerous is this, especially in an electoral year?
I mean, it's not the best of situations, of course, but not only because of elections and politics. We have to remember the work that the police spent their time doing most of the time, investigating all kinds of offenses, sexual assault, robberies, and so forth. And you need people who are committed to what could sometimes be an extremely stressful, boring job. And if you don't have people who are sufficiently committed to this kind of task, the danger is that we would have offenders remain in the community, they're not being held to account, and so forth. So the politics, yes, I understand that, but we have to look at what the police do every day. And we have really seen with some of the studies that have been done in Ghana that you have people who show up because they have entered the police force through all kinds of avenues. They're not committed to the job. Discipline within the service is problematic, and so forth. So we need to really take this extremely seriously and try to arrest the situation as quickly as we can.
Let me come to you, Peter Lanshini Tobu, on the dangers of same, especially in an electoral year. And maybe, just maybe, if I may play devil's advocate, your side is more concerned because you are in opposition, you stand to lose more. But generally, what does this mean for a police service which has been politicized? In other words, NDC police, NPP police. How dangerous is this from where you sit?
Colleague on the other side. It is extremely dangerous and very dangerously so to our democracy. We've traveled this journey for 32 years. And some of us believe that we should live to see this democracy grow to beyond 100. What is happening? Let me paint a very clear picture to you and tell you how dangerous it is. Imagine what happened in Techiman South in the 2020 elections. That men in uniform went to Techiman South, shot and killed. The case was at the CID headquarters, investigated up to date as we speak. Not a single soul has been arrested. And it is quite strange because in the security sector, when we talk about deployment is a structured way of doing things. And you can't go on operation and come back. And when they are looking for who was actually the one on that field, who shot, and they can't find that person, what it means is that if it is true that they can't find, then probably some people in uniform were not really soldiers, or they were not really uniform men, and they went and shot and killed. And even that happened, and we cannot arrest them. What it means is that the next time you find a person in uniform at a polling station, you will begin to doubt whether this is really the official person who is designated to be here, or these are some of the tasks. And when you doubt that they are really official, you are likely to attack them because of the history. So can you imagine that you've done this kind of recruitment as we are seeing them attempting to do now? And some of them have gotten into uniform and they were probably at Techiman South. And some of them probably are also in uniform and they are here at the headquarters. So the complicity, colleagues of us are shooting in Techiman South, and colleagues of us are at the CID headquarters who are supposed to do the investigation, and they do what we call blue veiling, they cover up. Democracy is endangered completely. Let's not go this way. If we are interested in democracy, as much as we know that it's the best option for us as a country, if we go this way, what we're virtually saying is that probably we're interested in something else, which is more dangerous and chaotic.
Now, you've put out a statement as Member of Parliament for Wa West constituency as well, and you talk about, you know, the police pyramid, the role of the IGP and all of that. Let's situate the conversation, because now we're being told that, per the information your side has gathered, every MP on the majority side, and there are what, 138 of them? So let's do the math. 138 by 30, right? 138 by 30. You get 4,140. So you are alleging, if they are able to fill these slots, we're going to see about 4,140 of these recruits in the police service, in the military, who would be party people, foot soldiers, if you like, or party people, or be partisan, who could be deployed. Break down for us what the implications of this would be, how you even arrived at this information, what information you intercepted, and maybe the role of the IGP in all of this, how maybe this could be deterred. What is your take on that? Mind you, the IGP, as you know, is an appointee of the president. He is part, his outfit is part of the executive. What's your take on that?
Thank you very much. The police is the coercive arm of government. And the police is a constitutional creation. It's a creation of law. And the IGP happens to be at the apex. Command and control stops with him. So whatever happens, it's a unitary command system. Whatever happens, it is the Inspector General of Police. And let me do a bit of a quick correction. We have 275 parliamentary candidates for the new Patriotic Party. It's not MPs. All their parliamentary candidates have been given 30 slots. 10 for the army, 10 for the police, 5 for immigration, 5 for fire service, totaling 30 each. And if you do this, my other colleague on the other side just made mention of it. That is what we call political capture of a state institution. So probably we'll move a bit further from politicization to total political capture. And if that happens, it's not about my party. It's about the fact that Ghana as a nation has gone democratic. And we're saying that transparency, accountability, equality, and the representation are some of the values I want to espouse. And very particularly, we should see these values in the Ghana Police Service. If you want the Ghana Police Service to be representative enough, and you don't want to do open publicity about recruitment, and you think that you should share it by a constituency, then decide that every constituency you are going to recruit 30 people. If every constituency is going to take 30 people, then myself and my MPP candidate in West, probably he will have 15 and I also have 15. But when we bring the people, let's do the selection as politicians and take them to the police. Let the police take them through the system that you have to go through to be qualified to be recruited. And if a person qualifies, that is it. If you fail, that is it. But that is not even the right thing to do. Why would we have to descend to the point that we are allowing politicians to take over the administrative and operational duties of the Inspector General of Police? For instance, the Minister for Interior. The Minister for Interior is a policy person. He represents the President at the Minister of Interior at the policy level. And the Minister of Interior should not be seen micromanaging or attempting to intervene on matters of administration or operations when the IGP is there. If the IGP allows that, he will go down history as one of the worst IGPs ever in our democracy.
What are you saying? You're saying that if the IGP allows this to happen, this purported drive, he would turn out to be the worst in what? The history of the country or the Fourth Republic?
Let me repeat this. If the IGP allows political capture of the police institution, and each parliamentary candidate of the ruling government succeeds in bringing 30 people, some for police, the army, immigration, and whatever, the IGP is going to go down history as the worst ever Inspector General of Police. That I can state without equivocation.
Let me ask you, though, does your side have anything to back it up, to prove that these machinations are indeed in the works? I mean, it's one thing making the claim. It's another thing being able to provide evidence. I do know that in these matters, they are done behind the scenes. It is difficult to follow the paper trail. Sometimes there are no communications, there are calls, and I know that. But I'm saying, do you have any evidence, hard evidence, to back these claims you're making? These are damning claims you're making. Do you have hardcore evidence to back it up?
Fortunately, I think that it is trite knowledge that everywhere in the system you will hear. What is even damning is the fact that you will hear that slots are on sale. Because if you give 30 slots to a parliamentary candidate who is struggling financially, and you decide I'm going to sell 10, 20,000 for each, that is 200,000 Ghana cedis. It can support my campaign. And he gives it to maybe a party chairman. Please give me 2 people. The party chairman goes to sell them because the party chairman is struggling to even repair his car. So finally, you see that slots are on sale, and the selling of the slots are not really from the police, they are from the politicians. But it will go to affect negatively the image of the police. So these things, when we talk about hard facts and evidence, I told somebody yesterday, at the Interior and Defense Committee level, we speak it as it is without adding any color. And this is on air. As a security person, it's not everything that we say on air. And I'm sure that when the Minister of Interior and the IGP, the Chief of Defense, and when they appear before the committee, I am sure, humbly enough, they'll appreciate what is happening. If they allow it to ever happen, what we are telling the Ghanaian people that we are fed up with our democracy, and we are interested in dictatorship. And that
wait, hold it. You're saying that if the security operatives or the security services and their heads allow this to happen, then what we are saying as Ghanaians is that we are tired of our democracy. And then what?
We are moving towards dictatorship. Where the politician dictates everything. Even when the Constitution says the Inspector General of Police, for instance, is in charge of the administration operation of the police service, the Minister of Interior, for instance, will go and say, look, I am bringing you a list of 200 people, go and train them now. And the IGP cannot say anything and goes to train them. We've gotten into the forest completely.
Let me bring in Mr. Kpebu. So there's an interesting picture being painted here. I want you to help me with this, because in that statement by Peter Lanchini Tobu, he also mentions, the last point says, the largest cadet officers course since 1959 is the current one. I repeat, the largest cadet officers course since 1959 is the current one, of course, about the police service. Course 53, with over 400 officers. This is the number that you are allegedly still thinking of adding on to. It looks bizarre to the national security family of our nation. I advise you to revise your notes if these allegations can be, I think, so let's say, proven prima facie. What would be your reflection?
Before he comes in?
No, it's not for you. It's for Mr. Kpebu. What do you make of this, especially with the context that is provided by this statement by Peter Lanchini Tobu? Mr. Kpebu.
I think in terms of how many officers are needed and so forth, that are recruited, that would be based on whatever needs assessment that the police service they do. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the numbers. I have a problem with how people are recruited. And I think that is where we need to focus the analysis. And the issue here is in part about police ethics, because ethical policing starts with who you recruit, how you recruit, the transparency of the process, and so forth. So it will be quite difficult to say that a police service or a police leadership is ethical when recruitment processes are opaque. And that is something we need to try to address. And we are doing so in a context where, if you look at the last Afrobarometer survey, it showed that only 7% of Ghanaians said they had a lot of trust in the police. And so if we really want to address that kind of trust deficit, we have to start by building confidence in the way that we recruit people into the police service. And that is an issue that should be of key strategic concern for the police administration. And it would mean that they have to try to do whatever they can to fend off any attempt to interfere in their processes. And that is what I think should be their concern.
What do you think, though, the leadership of these institutions? You know that when elections are held in Ghana, you would find the security services generally, the police, the military at some point, and there have been some issues with that, especially on the back of the last election and some killings that happened. But the police, the military, you would have even the fire service, immigration, all of those people in there helping. What then would you say for all of the heads of these agencies, and especially the IGP? What would you want to see as the reaction of these institutions through their leaders on these concerns? What would you like to see? or here?
I think they have to try to respond. They have to answer the question as to how many people have been recruited throughout the period of concern. When were they recruited? How were they recruited? Those should be very simple, straightforward answers to provide. If it is indeed the case that all these people being recruited were first shortlisted or whatever that it might be a couple of years ago, and then they are being called back because opportunities have arisen, we need to know that. Is it indeed the case? And what is the argument for this? Is it the best available resource at the given time? Because at any time that you are recruiting, I suppose your question is, what kinds of officers do we need, and who are the best available people at that given time? So somebody who might be qualified, I don't know, in 2018, in 2024, you probably have a better qualified person to consider. So it just seems that as I said, if they are really interested in the questions of ethics, if they are interested in dealing with the low public trust, if they're interested in building confidence and so forth, then these are issues that they cannot just let slide. They have to try to respond, and respond in a way that is convincing, is persuasive, and so forth.
Prof, are you also suggesting then that if these leaders of these security installations or institutions do not respond, it could imply in the minds of the ordinary Ghanaian that there is something afoot? Is that what you're saying?
Well, first of all, we live in a democracy, and part of what we are entitled to is to ask civil questions and to expect a response. So in the first instance, there is an obligation to respond to questions that citizens ask of institutions or public officials. That's the first important thing. So there's an inherent obligation there. And secondly, yes, if we do not respond, then some people might assume that indeed the allegations are true, and that will have all kinds of implications, as has already been discussed.
Hold for me, Prof. Let me also bring in Peter now. Just to situate the conversation further, you have put this out, you have made some claims, and how are you going to back it up? What is going to be your next move, especially as the minority side in Parliament? What next can we expect?
Thank you very much. Before I go to what next, let me just quickly say something about the over 400 cadet officers at the police academy right now. It's not about the number. It's about the fact that there is a standard procedure involved in recruiting people to go to the police academy. When you get to the police academy and you are called a particular course, this is the 53rd course since the establishment of the college in 1959. And this is the largest number ever because population is increasing. We need more supervisors. There's no problem about that. But when you lock the door to a course, you can only be planning for course 54. You can't halfway along the line go and take people, put them together, some of them who are even juniors to those who are at the college, and go and mix them up and say, yes, in the next 2 months you are graduating and you're becoming a senior police officer, a supervisor at the first line. What it means that we are going to create a lot of incompetent supervisors, and it will gradually cascade. The effect will cascade to affect all of us. And I say,
so Peter, let me get this clearly. You're saying that this cohort has already started training, and that was my surprise as well. They've already started training. They are midway through. They've advanced and all of that. If we add on any people, it could affect the quality because they would have less time, and they're going to graduate at the same level as those who have been there, those who technically would be their seniors. And that the only thing that could be done is to add them to the next cohort, which would probably be next year, not this year. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. That's the point I was making. If you insist that you want to add on to this course because it must be politically correct, you are politicizing course 53. And I said it with all the experiences that I've had in the 25 years. If you politicize the course, they will suffer it in their police career till they retire. Let's not do it. Think about course 54. There's no problem about that.
Final thoughts then on the way forward in just about a minute and a half.
Yes. The way forward, let the Inspector General of Police respect the Constitution. Let every politician appreciate the fact that the Ghana Police Service anchors the successes of our democracy. And let's give them free hand to do what is professional. When the police are wrong, let's tell them in the face, this is a no-no. When they are right, let's applaud them. I think that stick and carrot approach will have a better Ghana Police Service and, for that matter, a better democracy.
Thank you, Mr. Kpebu. Let me take the final words from Professor Takebe as well. Prof?
Well, I think most of the time politicians do try to influence the police on duty. And it is the responsibility of police managers to always find ways to resist these efforts. And I think the police need to do more to show that they are not just handmaidens of politicians. And it starts by really having some control over recruitment processes, making them transparent, because it's only fair that that is done, that it's their obligation to do so as well, and that it would help in the kind of professional police service that they are seeking to have in order to ensure that the police are able to do the duties that are assigned them, not just policing of elections, but as I said previously, in the everyday investigations that they have to do, the quality of those investigations, and so forth. We need them to be able to do that. And they cannot do that if they lack public trust, if they are not professional, and so forth.
Thank you, Prof, for joining the conversation. You just heard Associate Professor of Criminology at the University of Cambridge, Justice Tankebe. He joined the conversation. We also had the Member of Parliament for Wild West, who is on the Defense Committee of Parliament, Superintendent of Police, Peter Lanshini Tobu, retired, of course, joining the conversation. How about you? What is your take on this? Well, it's a conversation that will continue as we interrogate the salient issues. But still to come, we're going to be talking about that tussle between the Social Security and National Insurance Trust and the Trades Union Congress. Now, the TUC is up in arms against SSNIT for its decision to cede up to 60% of its hold on each of the 4 plush hotels to the Agric Minister, Brian Echampo, as they vow to unleash a protest like never seen before in the country if SSNIT goes ahead with this deal. It's all about Rock City, on the one end owned by Brian Echampo, the Agric Minister, and SSNIT. There have been so many suggestions, purported claims made, but what is truth in there? We'll be seeking that when we return on the AM show. Stay. Welcome back on the AM show. So what is this conversation about these 4 plush hotels and the stake of SSNIT being sold to Rock City, owned by the Agric Minister, Brian Echampo, Dr. Brian Echampo? We'll be getting into the nitty-gritty. We'll hear from the TUC. We'll hear from a lawyer, among others. Joining me in the studio, Sweetie Abochi is here as well. But let's also acknowledge the presence of Martin Kpebu. Good morning, Martin.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Kpebu.
I hope you're well this morning.
Yeah, I'm fantastic.
All right.
Despite the hard time.
You were saying?
I said I'm okay in spite of, the hard economic conditions, the hardship. It's really hard, Hey. But we are braving it. Mr.
Kpebu, you are feeling the pinch too, eh?
Oh,
I thought that was for some of us. So if you are feeling it too, then now wow.
Yes, I owe in pounds, right? I owe. So every time the pound is going up, and I'm like, me soon at the gym. You can imagine my debt keeps ballooning. It's a shame.
Mr. Kpebu, you've made me laugh this morning. I said, once soon at the gym, your intestines are in fire. You owe in pounds. Oh, not the best time to owe in pounds, but interesting way to start. Do hold for me, Mr. Kpebu. Let me bring in Ken Kpebu Akodia. He is vice chairman of the TUC. He joins the conversation as well. Mr. Kpebu Akodia, good morning.
Good morning, brother. Thank you. How are you doing?
I am well. I saw you before we came on sipping on, something. So I hope your morning is better than Mr. Kpebu's morning.
Obviously, yes. Mine is better.
Yours is better. Okay, so let's get into this vexed issue of SSNIT, its stake in some hotels, and 60% of that being ceded to by the Champions Rock City. Some say, well, if they have the capacity, why not? These are some of the moves that would strengthen the institution and ensure that its investments give the returns that would help, to also ensure that contributors get the most out of their contributions. But others are also saying this is another form of state capture, among others. As the TUC, you've been speaking on this. What is your position on the matter?
Let me first and foremost say that TUC is not against any Ghanaian who has a need to purchase any business. And for that matter, the Honorable Minister. The issue is that SSNIT, as it is, even though it's a state, it is not like the other government agencies, which is funded solely by the state. It is the employers and employee contribution that runs SSNIT. So SSNIT is very unique. And so whatever SSNIT seeks to do must be in the interest of the people who fund it, i.e. the employees and the employers. And so for that matter, all the investment that SSNIT has, and I keep saying that SSNIT investment, I think my last interview, I mentioned that SSNIT investment are not yielding the returns and needed thorough investigation. I have read SSNIT's statement, and all it is not to portray is that SSNIT wants to raise capital. And SSNIT also wants to increase efficiency and stability, and also increase the shareholder value. But all this can be done in so many other ways. If you want to raise capital, why do you let off your shares when you can even use shares for members to buy shares with them? Efficiency is also not only about raising capital. It's about putting in the right management to engender efficiency. So for us as trade union, what SSNIT seeks to achieve, for us, can be done by so many other ways if they had consulted, if they had engaged the stakeholders. Organized labor and employees are a key stakeholder in SSNIT, not the government. But like I said, where you have, like you also said, you have an institution being headed by a politically appointed person, where you have 8 board chairmen being appointed by a politically headed person, and you have that institution selling some viable hotels to other politicians, then that cannot be taken for granted. It raises issues about morality. It raises issues about ethical standards, and these are not acceptable. So for us, these things doesn't come clear to us.
This other ways that you're talking about that SSNIT could raise funds, if it is established, and that's a big if it's established that indeed SSNIT needed this to raise capital, would you have been open to Would you have liked it or leaned to the school of thought that they should have opened up the sale to ordinary citizens, the contributors to this trust fund? Is that part of the options that you think they should have explored?
That would have been one of the best options. Come back to the shareholders and tell them what you want to do, and let's see what you want to do. But letting go your share to a political loan figure breeds a lot of controversy, and that is not right at this point.
But
that,
if they did, in fact, open it up to regular citizens and contributors, there are some political entities who are also contributors. Would you have a problem then?
No, that would have meant that it's open for everyone who has the means to buy. The medium we are using can be very controversial, and that is what we don't want. We don't want in this situation where state institutions headed by political appointees to be selling those institutions to political heads. That is not acceptable. And I'm saying that SSNIT also should know that all that they are doing is towards enhancing the pension of the ordinary retired Ghanaian. So if that is your motive, as you clearly mentioned, to raise capital, why don't you look out for other options? So for us, this is not right at all. First, we sell this to a known political party, known person, regardless of that person's ability to buy or not. That is not the question. You are seeking to enhance capital. You are seeking to increase profitability, seeking to engender efficiency. It's not the only means you can do to sell to a business of state.
So let me just ask this. You mentioned ethical standards, and I am thinking same. I have just been wondering, for example, if this were some other part of the world, Japan, Norway, the UK, US, anywhere else in Western Europe or the United States and Canada. And I bring them up because these are the societies we seek to emulate when it comes to democracy. Would this even come up where someone who is a minister or a secretary would then have his or her own institution going for such a scheme? So when you say ethical standards, how does that reflect on what is happening? You know, it's like the Bible says, you can do all things, but not all things are essentially to be done. What do you think about that?
Yes, that is absolutely right. And Royalty can participate in any other private, but because of the ownership structure of that entity and the caliber of people involved, it cannot be ethically right and morally right that we all sit down and allow ministers of state to be acquiring state-owned entities or shares. So, like you said, elsewhere, this wouldn't be that right. But in this country, if you don't speak up, if you don't make the noise, if you don't go on demonstration, things like this can pass, and it becomes a very bad precedent for future to watch. And it is not right. Yes, Rockity can have the means, they can have what it takes to bring efficiency. But the question is it just right that you sit in cabinet, you sit on other high-level decision-making bodies in this country, and then you have your colleagues who you sit with also part of this whole business? It's not just right.
Well, this never seen before industrial action that the TUC and other organizations are threatening should this sale not be halted. Do you think that this is what it would take to force the hands of SSNIT and its board of trustees to halt this sale? And what does it even look like? This never seen before industrial action.
Indeed, Labour don't like always pleasant facts. But unfortunately, in this country, It is the only thing that government would listen to. It needs serious overhauling. ILO has asked SSNIT to develop a funding policy. A funding policy that will revive their investment, that will revise their programs and their policies, and that will also engender increment in contribution. Since 2014, ILO has been on SSNIT. For this to be done, SSNIT is not bothered. Every indication is that SSNIT is heading towards a point where, if you're not careful, it cannot give the retirees what they deserve.
Right.
SSNIT is about 52 years old. They've not introduced new benefits to.
Right. So Ken, we've established the fact. So what does this industrial action look like that you think would actually force the hands of the entities involved, the people responsible for this, to halt the sale? What does it look like? Paint the picture for me.
Every public institution in this country will close. It includes government ministries, FDAs. It includes the schools, the universities. It includes the hospitals. It includes aviation. It includes BRA, GRA. So we are all just shutting down because this is about our future. All the it's one game that can make you suffer and yet can't see incident.
All right.
We cannot allow this to happen for our meager pensions, and we will strike than ever before in this country.
All right, Ken Kpebu, Vice Chairman of TUC, thank you for joining us. We have to let you go now, but let me bring in Martin Kpebu, who is a private legal practitioner. Martin, how does all of this sit with you, especially on the issue of conflict of interest? You're a lawyer. Share your thoughts with me.
Yeah, so, sweetie, what happens is that, because we are in a very dense climate of corruption in Ghana, because this administration has been very corrupt, as soon as you see that government is selling something to a minister, then immediately your mind comes to the same point. This is also another corrupt deal. It's unfortunate, but it's because the government has allowed corruption to fester. So we can only think that it's corruption because it's all about their self-interest, from the president to the ministers, etc. Right? Yes, so that is the starting point. It cannot sit well with me because of the way corruption is gone up and up. And the figures support it. President Kufuor's performance, his best mark, 43. And that was the lowest mark in the JM's administration, right? And other things. This year
was it not 41? I think it was 41, which is the highest, which is the lowest mark, because I think 43 was the highest, right?
No, JM got 48 at a point. JM got 48. But what I said is that JM's lowest mark, which is 43, is President Kufuor.
Okay, all right.
Who's best. Is that correct?
Yes, I think the point is made. Yeah.
That's what I meant. So that's the first. Now, the second point is, why does SSNIT bring out the document that justifies this kind of sale? You're going to give us 60%. How is that 60% going to lead to you getting better outcomes? Can we see the document? SSNIT should publish it so that we can read it and interrogate. But SSNIT should have known that this transaction will leak. And so they should have been proactive by making all these kinds of documents available. You see the statement that TUC issued. They make it clear that at the SSNIT board meetings, their representatives told SSNIT that no, they are opposed to the sale. So SSNIT should have known that if this is really a good deal, then they should publish the documents. So for me, the next step is that if SSNIT can prove through the documents, then we can look at it. But the starting point, as I've said, is that this looks like a corrupt deal. Absolutely. Because that is the stock in trade of this government. Corruption all over. So let's bring out the documents and then we can interrogate publicly. Then we can see if really this will pass. But as Mr. Akapo mentioned, the Bible says it. Yes, you may have the right to do all things, but not all things are expedient. Why would Brian Champon want to buy these?
All right.
He says he's building rock city. Okay.
Martin, hold for me. Let me bring in now the ranking member of the Employment, Social Welfare and State Enterprises.
I thought you were going to ask a question.
Yeah, but just hold for me. Let me bring in Dr. Kwabena Donkor, and then we'll come back to you. Dr. Kwabena Donkor, thanks for joining the program. Are you on?
Yes, please.
Great. So one of the issues that has come up is that for Brian Champong, who is a politician, entering a sale like this without permission from Alban Bagbin is a breach of parliamentary protocol. How does this reflect the work that Parliament is trying to do, and what are you going to do about it from your committee?
Well, I can't speak for Parliament, and I'm not responsible for government assurance. My concern about this transaction is the very excuse SSNIT gave. If you look at their press release, the very first paragraph, SSNIT claims that they are selling of their
your voice is a bit far away. Could you speak up, please?
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yes.
Yes. If you look, I am not even going to go on the ethical, political, and legislative issues. I want to even look at the business case. And for me, as a ranking member of State Enterprise, it is so important that we place a lot more emphasis on business decisions. SSNIT says it's selling off its equity in order to re-inject money into the hotel. Contradiction in terms. You are not the sole shareholder of the hotel. You are the majority shareholder, at least according to their own documentation. And therefore, if you need to recapitalize, if you call for a rights issue or inviting debt, if you are calling for a rights issue, the very nature of the rights issue would dilute your shareholding because other people will come in with equity. If it's debt will not dilute your equity. But you cannot dispose of your equity and say you want to re-inject money into it. It doesn't work that way.
Well, in their defense, they're not disposing of it. They're only selling 60% of the stake.
Are they the sole shareholders in the hotel? Are they the sole shareholders in the hotel? They are not. So 60% of what? 60% of their holding or 60% of the equity in the hotel?
And you can also look at it from this angle, Dr. Kwabena Donkor. If you're disposing of 60%, that means that whatever stake you may have had, 60% is gone, which would then shift whatever the ownership was. If you had more powers on the back of being a majority owner, now you shift to becoming a minority owner, right?
You see, more importantly, what SSNIT has not done, and I've looked at their 2022 financials, SSNIT is a pension fund, and therefore it should make profit, accumulate revenue to pay future pensions. If you look at their financials, the return from their hospitality assets, is it lower than returns from other areas of investment? If it's lower than other areas of investment, including government bonds, then you can make a business case. But in the 2022 financials that I have seen, it is not the least. In fact, it's higher than some other returns on some other investment. So what is the business case for disposing of that?
Dr. Kwabena Donkor, let me bring you back to memory this International Labour Organization's report that projected that by 2036 or so, SSNIT will not be able to pay its beneficiaries. Do we see any connection here between this attempted sale of 60% of stake in these 4 hotels and the depleting reserves of SSNIT? Is there something here to look out for?
Not necessarily. In fact, if you've looked at SSNIT's financials for the last 10 years, there has always been that SSNIT is required by law to have an international actuary look at the sustainability of their reports. So in all their financials in the last couple of years, that has always been highlighted. There is a challenge with return on investment with SSNIT, which is within the managerial competencies of SSNIT. That needs to be improved. SSNIT has to get a higher return on their investment. But there are also structural problems.
Like what?
Which, for example, SSNIT used to take all of our social security contributions. It's no longer that. That is one. Because there's now Tier 2 and for some even Tier 3. That is one. Then 2, the SSNIT, our contributions to SSNIT has its own issues in terms of payment. If SSNIT were a purely private fund, some people would be paid pensions lower than what they are being paid, especially those at the very bottom. So there is a structural problem. Then there is, of course, the aging of their assets and also the aging of their debts that we also have to look at. Okay. Again, there's a question, do we increase pension age to keep people in work? In some jurisdictions, like UK and all other places, they've had to increase pension age because people are living longer and contributions can no longer pay. But we have a peculiar situation of great unemployment, youth unemployment. And so if we say we are going to increase the pension age to 62, the repercussion for our very specific Ghanaian situation is that will be increasing youth unemployment. So there are policy issues. But of course, there are definitely managerial issues which borders on return on investment.
Dr. Donkor, thank you for your thoughts on that. Let me also bring in Executive Director, Africa Center for Retirement Research, Abdallah Masood. He joins the conversation. Mr. Masood, a very good morning to you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
You would have to speak up, Mr. Masood. We can barely hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, better now.
Yeah, that's okay.
When you look at where we've got to, Sweetie, my colleague, was just making mention of the latest ILO report and the shape of SSNIT, basically. But we are looking at the current situation where shares or stake is going to be sold in 4 hotels to someone who is a bigwig in the current administration. From the business perspective, from other perspectives, we are looking at retirement benefits. Have you seen these happen in your experience? Is this normal practice as far as what you know is concerned?
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. Yeah, I think you asked the question of whether the recent picture that we have...
Mr. Masood, you're still going back to sounding a bit muffled.
Hello, can you hear me?
It's better. Go ahead.
Yes. What I'm saying is that I would like to start with your question about if there's a connection between the recent actuarial valuation report and SSNIT investment performance. You see, actuarial valuation report is something that needs to be taken serious. And let me take you back a little bit. In 2011, an actuarial valuation was conducted. And the results of the scheme were set to deplete by 2031. Let's get the figures right. By 2031, Then 3 years later, in 2014, another actuarial valuation report was issued, and the debris date came to 2042. 3 years later, in 2017, another valuation was conducted. It came down to 2037. That is by 5 years. Then the recent actuarial valuation report that we are currently discussing, the debris date has come down to 2032. If you look at the trend, where are we going? What the trend is going to tell us is that we are getting close to the present.
Abdullah, if you're moving, sorry to interject, if you're moving, could you please stay at one place? There's a lot of interference from...
I'm not moving, I'm just sitting at one place.
Okay, then just reposition and let's try again.
Okay.
Okay, please go ahead.
Is it okay?
Yes.
Yes, so in each of the actuarial valuation reports, there have been recommendations. And over the period, we have done nothing about those recommendations. Now, let's talk about, so there's a clear relationship between investment performance of the trust and the ILO report, or the picture that ILO reports are painted. If you look at the investment performance of the scheme in the last 8 years, SSNIT has posted, out of the 8, SSNIT has posted 5 negative real returns on their investment. And that is a major cause for concern as far as the long-term sustainability of the scheme is concerned. This investment performance is resulting from people taking advantage of the situation. If you break SSNIT investment portfolios into two, one in which they have major shareholding and one in which they have less control, you realize that the ones in which they have major shareholding and whole control are not doing well. They are not, giving us the right return. And it's all because the members of the board in there have short-term interest. And they simply take advantage of the situation. And that is how come such investments are not performing. Now, you talked about Honorable Abdulka's petition to strike. It's not very clear what they'll be investigating. Are we looking at possible procurement breaches, or looking for conflict of interest situation, or seeking to establish if the transaction met best practices in social security administration? I want to deal with the last one, how the transaction or the action of the trust is actually feeding into improving the long-term sustainability or the efficiency of the social security system. But if you look at SSNIT response, out of the 13 bullet points, 11 of them have been dedicated to trying to paint a picture that they haven't put in a procurement, they haven't evaluated any procurement procedure and all that. But in social security administration, Ben, these are not important. What is important has to do with how the transaction or the sale would translate into optimum returns in a safe way and contributing to the broader economic growth. If you look at Honorable Brian Temple's Rock City trying to swallow 4 major public investments of the public pension system, and you feed that into standards and best practices across the world, you will realize that this is not passed. This is not going to pass the test. And so, for trying to do due diligence in the matter, especially when it has to do with really sizing up to see whether the objective of, creating an efficient pension system or improving the long-term sustainability of the scheme, as a result of which they are, having 50% of their shares, for trying to do something like that, there is the need for them to have some technical methods behind them. Because it's not just about ensuring that they certify the procurement procedures and all that. Look, in social security administration, we don't look at those things.
All right. So you've, Masood, you've spoken about best practices elsewhere, among others. In a nutshell, what are you saying? Is this wrong, Abid Inisio, right from the start? Is this wrong?
This cannot be done.
Is it wrong?
This cannot be done. And I am saying it cannot be done because, look, do we know, what do you call it, the shareholders of Rock City? Have we looked at their track record? we have lost mission report attached to the documents that they presented. There are a lot of questions that need to be answered. And even before we go in there, you realize that, what do you call it? This transaction is not going to pass the test. As far as best practices and social security administration is concerned, this is not going to pass. And for me, I think...
And it's not going to pass the test, and it's not going to pass the test because...
It's not going to pass the test because it's not going to give, what do they call it, optimal returns on the investment. It's not safe. It's not, contribute to the economic growth of the country. And I am very excited that TUC and other, labor unions are indicated that they are not going to pass this one. And of course, this is just creating a platform for us to have a serious stakeholder discussion on the governance and administration of the social security scheme in Ghana. Because a lot of people are taking advantage, especially politicians, they're taking advantage of the gaps in the governance structure, and then they just deteriorate the scheme over time. I think something needs to be done, and this must be halted.
Okay, so you say this
stakeholders.
You say this.
Let me just make this last one then. If we are looking at efficiency, there is a need for stakeholders to broadly look at investment function of the tax. One thing I just want to say is that stakeholders are sleeping on most of the important issues on social security administration and governance. At the time the decision was taken to sell 50% of course, representatives of the workers' unions were part of the decision. Why are we talking about it right now? It's something they should have put over to their members so that we can discuss rather than wait and be reactive at this point.
Right. I just want to, this one question that has been raised by Mr. Masood, I'll bring it to both Dr. Kwabena Donkor and Martin Kpebu before Sweetie also comes through with some questions. He talks about the shareholders of Rock City. How important is that in this conversation we're having? I'll start with you, Martin Kpebu. The shareholdership of, or the stakeholdership of Rock City in the midst of all this. How important is it in this equation?
It's very important because, as I already mentioned, the matter of corruption, you want to check to see if any of these directors of SSNIT and also any government appointees or their relations have an interest in Rock City. Yes, that's the whole thing. Yeah, so that's why. So you just don't even look at only the shareholding. You also ask for the beneficial ownership of the shares. Because in law, Mr. Kpebu, I can give you the shares if I'm a shareholder of Rock City and then I want to hide my face. I can give the shares to you, Mr. Kpebu, to hold as a trustee. So nowadays at the Registrar General, Register of Company, you also have to show the beneficial owner. So Mr. Kpebu can be the shareholder on the paper, but if it's owned by somebody, you are required to disclose because we've seen that politicians and other people caught by various rules, including conflict of interest, try to hide by asking that others hold the interest for them. So it's very, very important that, yes, we go into the shareholding and the beneficial ownership of the shares.
Okay, so that is where you would want to lift the veil. Dr. Kwabena Donkor, are you in agreement on that point? Hello, Dr. Kwabena Donkor.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
Yeah, it is important we know who the shareholders and beneficial owners of the entity are. But more importantly, we also need to see the track record of the hotel group that wants to buy the asset. Do they have a 5-year track record of good performance? Because one of the aims that SSNIT has publicly stated is that they want to bring in private sector management. Has Rock City published its financials for the last 5 years or so? And has it been profitable on those 5 years? What has been the return on investment? If you are bringing in a preferred equity participant on the basis of performance management, then we must know the track record of that entity. And so far, I have no idea of their published audited financials for the last 5 years. And it's the minimum we can look at, not just the money.
Right. Let me come back to Martin. Thank you, Dr. Kwabena Donkor. Martin Kpebu, so there are a lot of details that are lost in all of this. You know, we don't know what the terms of payment are, terms of sale. We've not seen the, the details of this criteria that SSNIT is saying that based on that, Rock City emerged the best. But Shraj has responded to the petition by Honorable Samuel Mokujeso Ablakwa. And there's also this looming industrial action by TUC. I want you to help us bring it home. What should be done from here? Legally, I mean. Martin, are you still with me?
Yeah, so, yes. So, SSNIT should hold on with the transaction. Yes, hold on until Shraj is done. And then we'll see where the chips will fall, right? Also, let's note that in the TUC's letter, you see they are complaining that the terms of the payment have been varied. The very point you've raised, Sweetie, the point you've raised that we don't know the terms of the payment. And SSNIT, the TUC is complaining that the terms have been varied. So you see why in my initial submission, I said SSNIT should publish all the papers so that we can all read through.
Right.
Sunshine is the best disinfectant. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. Let's all have an opportunity to see what the documents are.
Well, thank you so much, Martin Kpebu, private legal practitioner, for joining the conversation. We're also joined by Ken Twenebu-Akodia, who is Vice Chairman of TUC, and Abdullah Mashood, Executive Director, Africa Center for Retirement, and also the ranking member of the Employment, Social Welfare and State Enterprises Committee, Dr. Kwabena Donkor. Looks like we've wrapped up on this conversation, Benjamin. How do you feel about all of this? Give me a sense of your thoughts.
A sense of my thoughts? I feel that, some things under normal circumstances shouldn't even happen. Those are my thoughts. I feel, let's look at it this way. Ubia Pesika, everybody wants money. There's nobody on planet Earth who rejects money. Even the hermit knows that at some point they will need something and they will need money. Sometimes you begin to ask yourself, how much is enough? And when we are in political office, do we realize that there are certain lines, maybe as a purely businessman, you would cross that as a politician, because you are politically exposed, you actually, ethically, shouldn't cross. There are things that I feel, you can have, like I said, all things are good, but not all things are expedient to do. So some things I would be able to do as a person, but then, because of the work I do, because of this and that, I am not going to do it because while I am not barred from doing it, I wouldn't do it, so it wouldn't create a certain impression. I believe if we all had that in mind, it would help. That's my simple take on
The thing you said about Ubia Pesca, it's interesting because there's something I heard from Steve Harvey about how on this earth there's about 126 billion acres of land, right? And so if you're going to divide it by the number of people who inhabit the earth, each person is entitled to about 6 acres of land. But it appears when it comes to our political landscape, our leaders, the 6 acres is just not enough. And I find it very frustrating to sit here every morning and discuss what's going wrong. And we do all this work and we talk about it, we expose it. But when it gets to the point where they actually have to punish the culpable people, nothing is done. Where do you think this goes?
No, it's because the very people who are supposed to act are the beneficiaries.
Yes.
They are themselves the beneficiaries of the system. But it also tells you maybe it's time we took a second look at our democracy and democratic practice, because we often make this mistake. Oh, democracy, democracy. Democracy is how you apply it. It's in the context. Democracy in the UK is applied in a certain way. In the US, a certain way. In Norway, even China has a form of democracy
they do.
in a very different way. India does. Even Vietnam will tell you it has. So in our context, is our democratic practice living up to expectation? Is this what the people want? Is this what the 1992 Constitution foresaw or forethought when it thought of democracy?
But I'm actually very happy that TUC is threatening to, embark on this never-seen-before industrial action. And I hope that, to a large extent, it forces the hands of the key players in this brouhaha, this saga, to do right by us. But that's the end of the conversation. But there's still more to come on the AM show. We are not done. Stick with us. But before I go, let me tell you about the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, Drapa, Dubai. I'm sure you've seen the rest. Now it's time to see the best. Take a break from work and take a break from the South. The Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, the Drapa, Dubai, is the best place to relax, rewind, and re-energize. It is away from the stress of the South. Now, this is what awaits you. One unforgettable safari experience. Amazing array of wildlife, including lions, hippopotamus, zebras, ostriches, among many others, using their spacious and well-secured game tour vehicles or quad bikes. 2, water sports, such as jet skiing, boats, and canoe rides, among others. And 3, various family games to keep you and your families excited all day long. And 4, great tourist attractions in the Upper West region, including the Mushroom Rock, the Slave Cave, and others. Now, escape from the South, escape to the North, escape to Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, the Drapa, Dubai, for an unforgettable safari experience. Call them on 050-169-4280 or 024-88-444-63 for reservations and further inquiries.
Well, thank you for staying with us. We're going to be bringing you more of that action later. But then in our Joy News latest Hotline documentary, When the Mind Is Not, Emmanuel Jivenu explores the complex issues of mental health in Ghana, referencing bipolar disorder. We'll be bringing you that after the break.
And we're back on the AM show, and it's time for us to talk about mental health. Remember, this is Purple Month. The month of May is set aside to shed light on mental health issues, the associated stigmas and challenges that it comes with. I'll be joined by Dr. Elsie Abaksiki to get into the topic of bipolar disorder, as referenced in our Hotline documentary, When the Mind Is Not. Dr. Elsie Abakisi, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. The name is Abakisi.
Abakisi.
Yes,
oh, beautiful
yes.
Smile. Thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you. Thank you.
Now, I think we should start the conversation by putting this in perspective. A lot of people, almost everyone I know, when I talk about mental health, they think I'm exaggerating it. So let's put it in perspective. How crucial it is that we take mental health issues seriously, even if you don't have a problem, just regular checks and everything you can do to stay sane. How crucial is it?
So mental health is very, very, very crucial because it basically defines you as a person. It affects your work, your family, major areas of functioning. So, for instance, if your mental health is down, that means that you can't work, or when you work, you cannot produce maximum results as will be expected. And even in your social life, you'd realize that you cannot connect very well with the people close to you, you know. And even when you have medical conditions also, you may not even tend to pay attention to that, because at that point, you are out of touch with reality. So, yeah. So mental health is very, very crucial.
So let's draw the line then. Does it mean everyone who wants to take mental health seriously have a problem, or they're just being cautious so that they can live healthier lives?
Oh, yeah. So it's being cautious so that you can live healthier lives. Yeah.
All right. So now let's pivot into the topic for today, bipolar disorder. Could you please, first of all, give us a little brief on what this is and how to look out for it?
Okay. Thank you very much. So bipolar disorder or bipolar affective disorder is one of the psychiatric conditions you know. It is chronic and it's episodic. Now, it has to do with periods of mania, hypomania, or depression. I would explain what that means.
Right.
So mania simply means that you have an occurrence of where you have extreme happiness, euphoria, irritability, with increased energy and increased activity, subjective activity. And this is normally accompanied with either racing thoughts, like we heard in the documentary. You could also easily be distracted. So you'd see that the person can't seem to focus. Little things take him off or on. You tend to have a decreased need for sleep. So then that means that you sleep for a short while, you wake up and your energies are still very high. And then you would also tend to be impulsive. And so by virtue of that, you tend to engage in risky behaviors. You heard her say that there were times where she would go into the shop, just buy anything, give it out. You have some people who would just start taking alcohol substances. You would find some people who then tend to engage in sexual activities, etc. So anything that poses a risk or that can become a risk to you. And then you would also realize that apart from these things, people tend to also have an overvalued self-esteem. So you'd see that some of them tend to believe that they are either very important people than they usually are. And so as a result of that, you see that they tend to engage in activities that are risky because at that point, they think that they have that extra ability, to do things that that they normally would not be able to do. Yes, and some also become, as a result of their impulsivity, you would hear of suicide because then they take their lives, not really wanting to, but that impulsive drive happens. So those are some of the things that you will find. Now, this normally would occur within a period of a week unless medication comes in. And like I said, it will impair your function markedly. And you would have...
I'm sorry, did you say it lasts for a week? So when you have an episode, it lasts for a period of 1 week?
Yes, a minimum of a week.
Minimum.
Or sometimes you see that we intervene before a week. So when an intervention comes in, it doesn't change the diagnosis, okay? And then you could have this only, and you can make a diagnosis of bipolar, or you could have a mixed episode where you'd see that a person tends to move from this to a very depressive state. So you'll have a period of 2 weeks where within that period of 2 weeks, this client or patient tends to have low moods. He or she would have lost interest in the things he loves to do. He has this sense of worthlessness, excessive guilt, which is out of keeping in whatever the situation is. You see that he tends to be very slow, fatigued. He will tell you he doesn't know what he's done, but he just doesn't have the urge. He's feeling tired. You would also see that his sleep is poor and his appetite or her appetite also is decreased. Yes, and that hopelessness, that feeling, that sense that there's nothing that would really ever work. And then as a result of that, some of them tend to be suicidal, yes.
So like a personality that is completely opposite from the one that you normally have. But where does this come from? I mean, we know that, even from the documentary, we heard that the influence of drugs plays a big role in there. But what are the known causes of bipolar disorder? Where does it come from?
Yes. So bipolar, actually, we cannot put a single thing to say that bipolar is caused by A, B, or C. But we have certain factors that interplay that may contribute to you having bipolar. So one is genetics. So sorry to say this, but bipolar is the single condition that has a high likelihood of it being transmitted down to generations, okay? Because then it has this hereditary nature. So that's one. So you have that genetic factor. Then sometimes you have when there are issues with brain function, brain structure, maybe the way that the chemicals in the body are either not enough or something has gone wrong, etc. Or even in the function, brain function itself. Then you have environmental factors also, where again you have factors like substances coming into play. You have very stressful conditions, etc.
Right.
All these can trigger. And then you would also have it co-occurring with other medical conditions or other conditions. So you would see that somebody may be having anxiety and suddenly has depression and suddenly has bipolar, or the person has a personality disorder and has it, or thyroid, where the person tends to have low levels of the thyroid hormone, and as a result of that, the person tends to have this mood instability or depression and that sort. Yes.
So those who are at risk are people who have a history, family history of some mental health issues, or particularly bipolar disorder. Now, I know a lot of people who would throw around that word bipolar as an insult, so you're doing something crazy and they say you have bipolar. But I would like you to clarify that no one person, except you're a medical practitioner, can diagnose the other person of being bipolar. Is that correct? And if so, what are the processes, or how do you diagnose or be sure that what you have is actually bipolar disorder?
Yes. So with bipolar disorder, apart from the psychiatrists and the medical officers or anybody trained in mental health, together with the psychologists and all those who are trained to pick up these conditions. So we have specific diagnostic criteria that make us say that this is bipolar or this is not bipolar. And we can't make a diagnosis without the relative, because most of the time the history is key. So the relative comes and gives you a chronological sequence of events where the person they'll tell you that there's something off about this girl of us. We realized, or this male or female or child of us, we realized that this child for the last week, there's something off. She's very irritable, her energies are very high, accompanied with those other symptoms I mentioned, where easily distractible, a decreased need for sleep, risky behavior, etc. And yes, so that's how we come with the diagnosis. Or you have cases where the person has a depressive episode, but then you are sure that the patient would have had a hypomanic episode or a manic episode before. And then we make the diagnosis of bipolar. Now, it's not one of those conditions that you'd say, go to the lab and do a full blood count, take your blood, because most of the time that's what we tend to get. Patients will come and say, but you haven't taken my blood, or what does my blood say? It's not one of those. It's basically based on our history. That's how we make the diagnosis. Though we normally carry out investigations. The essence of the investigations is to rule out causes, because you can have bipolar, which is secondary to something else, a medical condition, substance, etc. So it's very important. And not only ruling out those other conditions or causing conditions, but sometimes they may be co-occurring conditions. And so we always will do some lab investigations.
So, I mean, we've gotten into the details of what this issue really is. Now, let's talk about management strategies or treatment options, if there are any. How do you treat bipolar? Or if someone is diagnosed with bipolar disorder, how do they manage living with that?
Yes. The treatment is very holistic. We normally use what we call a biopsychosocial approach, with emphasis on the psychosocial approach apart from the pharmacological approach. So basically, patients are put first on medication. We have medication which we call mood stabilizers. And these mood stabilizers, as the word suggests, they stabilize your mood. So we have certain mood stabilizers which we use. I'm sure you'd have heard about drugs like lithium. You would have heard of valproic acid, sodium valproic acid. You would have heard of maybe carbamazepine, yes, lamotrigine. These are some of the medications we use. But the psychosocial dimension is equally important because the patient will have to be able to deal with the condition, and be able to function very well in society. And so that's where the psychologist comes in, to teach the patient techniques and strategies, not just to recognize symptoms, but how to live with it, what to do to live with it, and also family support and everything. So, yes.
Can it be cured?
Very interesting question. Bipolar cannot be cured. It cannot be cured. It can be managed.
Okay, and you mentioned support from families. I'm sure there are some people watching us now who have a family member or friend who has bipolar. Let's speak to those people on how they can support these patients, if I should call them that, because there are some myths about bipolar disorder that you also, on this platform, you should give us, I'm giving you the opportunity to help us dispel these myths. So first, about how we can support people we know who have bipolar disorder and some of the misconceptions about this issue that you should put clarity on.
Yes. So how to support these patients first? Everybody deserves love, and that's very key. You deserve love. You deserve to be accepted because you didn't choose the condition. So you'd realize that there's a lot of discrimination in the family because one person has bipolar. Remember, he or she did not choose the illness. He didn't go anywhere and buy it. So he would need your love, your support. What do I mean by this? Now, there are certain triggers that you should help the patient to be able to identify these triggers. I haven't talked about the triggers, but if there's time, I'll talk about the triggers.
Yes, absolutely. We have about 5 minutes, but that's important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So you would have to help these people with the triggers. What are some of the triggers? You have stressful situations. So either loss of job, work situations, marriages, anything that
marriages,
stress. Yes. Marriages, every marriage has its issue, but there are some that are constantly, that you have a lot of quarreling, arguments, etc. Those can trigger bipolar,
I actually want to stay here for a little bit longer. It might be a myth, but this is a chance for us to clarify. I heard that when you go to Pantang, there are more women than men, and most of them are there as a result of broken hearts or issues from marriages and, amorous relationships. How true is that?
That can be true because it is a trigger, and it is a very, very serious trigger. It is a very, very serious trigger. So yes, you will find many women who tend to be on admission because of these issues, marriages, amorous relationships, very much, yes. But remember, that's not the only trigger, right?
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes, apart from that, you could also have changing sleep patterns, So work can change your sleeping patterns, events, even the jet lag that we normally have, that can affect that. Then you could also have extreme of change in climates and weather conditions, So here we are lucky we don't have winter, but it's known that at the beginning of winter, many of our patients tend to have more of the manic episode. And when they get into summer, you tend to have more of the depressive episode. So when we turn it to what we have here, that means at the beginning of the raining season, there's a likelihood that you would see that we have more cases of mania coming in, and then depression coming in, and during the summer you have more of mania coming in. And then apart from that, you also have hormonal changes. Okay? We know that hormones do change, but especially with females, pregnancy, and menopause. So with pregnancy, after the woman delivers, you see that there's a swift change in hormones, right? And sleep patterns at that time, and then medication. So all that become risk factors, you know, to trigger these conditions, and menopause also. And apart from that, also sometimes even deficiencies in certain vitamins like vitamin B12 and vitamin D have been known to trigger these, have been known to be triggers to bipolar.
What role does drugs? Okay.
Yes, very important is substance use.
Right.
That is the drug use. Very, very, very important. Because research has shown that 1 in 5 patients who have bipolar, who have been diagnosed with bipolar, have substance use disorders. And most of the time, alcohol is the chief suspect, you know. So alcohol, methamphetamine, cocaine, etc. Yes, so these do trigger.
Okay.
These are some of the
Dr. Abakisi, we don't have time to exhaust all the issues around this topic, but I'm sure that there are some there's somewhere that if you want to find information on this, you could go to. So do you have any idea or where we can get resources for our audience who want to read more or find out more about bipolar disorder?
Yes. So for our audience who want to find out more about bipolar, we know that we have the internet where you can get all the information. In the internet, you will
is that a trusted source?
Okay, so I'm coming to that.
Okay.
So the internet, because we have the Mental Health Authority, okay, that puts a lot. We have a Facebook page, the Mental Health Authority. We have a Facebook page that you can find very reliable information about bipolar.
Okay.
Yes, and so for Ghana, I would say yes, let's follow Mental Health Authority on Facebook. On Instagram, you would find us and you would have very authentic information. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Elsie Abakisi, who is a psychiatrist, helping us shed light on bipolar disorder in reference to our documentary, When the Mind Is Not. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, that's it for this belt of the conversation. Remember not to just browse on the internet. Go to specific pages, the Mental Health Authority, for more information. We'll take a break now, and when we come back, the photo of the day, and then we'll wrap it up properly like we always do. We'll be right back. All too soon, we've come to the end of the Tuesday edition of the AM show right here on Joy News. But before we go, it's not all too soon, it's been 4 hours. Before we go, though, here's something to take note of. Attention all HD Plus subscribers. Starting 13th of June 2024, SES HD Plus Ghana will provide HD channels to free-to-air TV homes at no cost. This means that all users of the multi-TV platform will have access to HD channels without paying HD Plus subscriptions. Key points to remember. 1. As of the 16th of April 2024, no new HD Plus subscription purchases or activations will be available. Existing HD Plus decoders will receive free-to-air channels until 13th of June 2024. 2. Subscribers with active subscriptions beyond 13th June 2024 will be compensated. Such customers will be contacted by the HD Plus number 024-243-9872 from 30th of April. Such subscribers are encouraged to call the HD Plus number 024-243-9872 from 1st of June. 3. From 30th May 2023, update your HD Plus decoder to access the new free-to-air HD channels. Support will be available until 20th of June 2024. So kindly look out for the over-the-air software and upgrade your decoder upon release of the software. And 4. Users of compatible Samsung QLED and UHD integrated TV sets should note that the My HD Plus TV app and My HD Plus mobile app will not be available from 30th of June 2024. 30th of May, rather, 2024. And that's all the information I'm bringing your way this morning. But before we go, you know how we do it. Time for photo of the day. You might have gotten a sneak peek already, but it's photo of the day.
Well, traffic signal. That's a traffic signal right there. I guess some sparrows have decided to find out whether it's in good working order, which it doesn't appear to be in. There's also the thread because of the way it's hanging out there. So you can tell this is not working, and it's hanging precariously, dangerously from where it is. It appears, I don't even know whether this was the original plan when it was, placed atop there like that. But there it is, traffic signal. That's our photo of the day. Any thoughts going through your mind, sweetie? You know, sometimes I pass under some of these and I
So here's what I think. I think this is Ghana, right? This is Ghana. This is us hanging by a thread. This is how much of how patriotic we've become. That we are just hanging by a thread. And this is the international community testing our foundation.
That's actually a very fertile imagination you have. And then the beam, the main beam, what would that be?
That's
the political class?
That's a global community.
Okay. That's interesting. But anyway, it's been 4 hours of content coming your way. We're done with our bit. Up next, the Joy News Desk crew will be coming through with more information. You know how we do it. We're independent, fearless, and credible. From Benjamin Akakbo and
Sweetie Abochi. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, 6 a.m. Don't miss it. Mwah.